There's also a list of openings on the volunteer webpage, tab on the town website for other town, boards and committees. Under item A, regular business is public comment. Anybody here wish to make a public comment? Okay. Nobody online, I guess.
Nope.
Okay. Item B, town manager updates.
Okay, I had attended the meeting last Friday at Northern Essex. And I know it sent around update via email, but you know, it was generally positive that kind of follow-up action items. There's going to be a press release that they're going to put out, I expect late today. So you'll probably see something in the paper in the next couple of days. They're definitely ramping up toward outreach to boards and city councils among the member districts to see about the letters that are going to need to be submitted to MSBA by July 1st. I and some of my counterparts definitely emphasized that that's, you know, probably not something that's necessarily going to be a one item thing. There some of the verbiage was suggesting that this was like, oh, we, you know, let's get this done. And it was like, whoa, this is going to take some consideration, and we're, you know, towns are in the middle of town meeting cycle and so forth. So try to manage expectations on that, but you have the draft form of letter, and it doesn't really deviate from the conditions in the MSBA conditional acceptance into the MSBA process. So, but you know, generally positive meeting. One of the specific questions I had asked, which when I sent around the update, I got an email back from Rick, who had the same question I had, which was the cost of the feasibility study for the next phase, and how much of that is perhaps embedded in their FY26 budget? How much are they maybe drawing from stabilization? Are those costs going to go into FY27? But basically understanding where those costs are going to come from. There was also discussion about kind of having a united front on going back to the MSBA to ideally not have to repeat a feasibility study for the existing campus, because that's already been done, and the ink is still like fairly dry on that. So the thought for those who had been directly involved with the MSBA process was that that's going to be typically an absolute condition they impose on every project. But it was hoped that where this one very recently did a feasibility study, that they could consider that responsive to that aspect of their letter.
Then they just incorporate the prior feasibility study into the new.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, within reason, it's only 2 years old.
Right. Correct, yeah.
Angus, the other question I had is on the amend as may be needed.
Thank you.
That's really problematic.
And that was discussed at the meeting. That was in the MSBA letter. But I think those are the kinds of things where I think some number of communities and cities, by the way, because you know, Mayor Reardon certainly made that point as well. The letters that you know, it's your letter. So I mean, the MSBA could say they want you to sign this letter, but I think, you know, you can take some latitude to.
I would have suggested we craft it differently with ours if we sent it, even if they don't all agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
there was some extensive discussion about Rowley, which is continuing to sit out the process, and there's obviously real concern about that because the MSBA is going to require all 11 cities and towns to agree to participate. So
I mean, what's in it for them to stonewall the whole thing? I mean,
They want out. No, that's what they said.
yeah.
They've checked out.
So were a couple of members of the working group that have you know, good relationships with members of their board, so there were going to be some, you know, continued conversations at that level. But it was suggested, you know, if they were to put that on a public meeting agenda on one of their board meetings, for instance, that perhaps a contingent from the region go in a you know, just to emphasize that there's an opportunity here if we all work together.
We know this is already relevant to us, but does Rowley not use Whittier at all? Do they send those?
No, they actually have a significant number of students. I think it's over 30. Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, significant number
Okay.
of students. Yeah.
I think they're just so bitter over the way things.
That's pretty- Doesn't seem like the right way to go forward.
No. All right,
Maybe unhappy, but bitter shouldn't stop you.
Next item, we did go ahead and submit, expression of interest earlier this week regarding the one-stop grant. We may or may not pursue it, but, submitting the EOI keeps that option open. So that's something we can talk about further, as to the warrant article, which had already been acted on, in anticipation that would be matching funds. I think it was in for 17.5.
Yeah.
So that's something that we might want to put on for next Thursday's meeting to revisit whether that's the right number, because if in fact we're gonna propose to self-fund the visioning process, then I think that number is gonna need to go up, and the language of the article request would be reframed.
This grant is for the visioning process.
Correct, that's right.
Because when it gets to the second, it says which part best describes the work that the funding grant will be used for. Consultant will produce a master plan.
It's a drop-down menu, so there were only, that was the most relevant. There wasn't, that wasn't our language. It was.
$3,000 master plan for 40 grand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next item, basically, it continues to amaze us how DOT just continues to kind of slow walk this. I will say, I think TEC and Kevin are really doing a great job advocating on our behalf. Beyond what was in your packet, we had some correspondence in the last 2 days, just emphasizing the impact of the right-of-way adjustments are solely on public land, to which the town, through town meeting and, through the Kentucky School Committee have already consented to. So, and even though the official filing was recent, they've had these for, I think since October, they've had the right-of-way plan. So, Kevin's really, working to accelerate that and just reinforce our goals to get that out to bid so we can build it this summer. So, he's working his network, and I think it's gonna engage Paul Stedman and just try to accelerate it, because there was some correspondence, I think, yesterday, so it wouldn't have been your packet, but I think suggesting a 10 to 12 week turnaround time. Yeah, and so that's not really gonna work well for us. So there's, but I'll say again, I think TEC's, I've been very pleased with their very polite, very professional, but very straightforward advocacy for this project.
Can I ask questions on this? I know it's
Sure.
your update, but I.
Yeah.
I guess the first one would be the simplest. Within the budgeting structure, it lists the police detail at 50,000, but then it adds a 10% contingency. That's kind of, you plug in a number, you don't have to add the 10%, I would think, and probably can mess. Didn't we apply for a grant for some of this work too?
We did, yeah, that's still pending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Page you want to do here?
28. Within the
What
special division,
was 28 for that? What's the question?
What page is on?
Oh, okay.
within there, that's basically a framework for your contract. It doesn't mention anything about a staging area for equipment and materials. Which considering we ran into that with a problem or something before, it should.
We did, yeah.
Actually, wasn't there something on the line? There was something, let me see if I can find it.
My concern is they're gonna wanna do it across the street, and that could get dangerous all day running equipment back and forth.
Well, okay, that is, there was something across the street on one of the drawings that I didn't spend a lot of time looking or thinking about it, but I assumed that it was a lay down area.
Also, they talk about the work during school and this and that. Would it be more advantageous to do it during the summer?
That's the whole objective, yes.
Okay, it's not listed, that's what I would, you want to slot it there.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's part of why we're trying to, accelerate this so we can get it out to bid and get it done by the time school starts in the fall.
Two more quick questions. One, it says the contractor and any subcontractors, only work any overtime if approved by the engineer. My comment would be, why do we care if they're working overtime as long as they're not compensated and billing you for it? If they have to work until 5 o'clock someday on their time, who cares? You could facilitate the project getting done quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are the kinds of things where the town's construction phase management, the construction engineering services would review those, because if they're working overtime, they're not gonna do it, for free. That would play out in the billing. So if that leads to a cost overrun, it's just that.
Well, I would put in there, as long as there's no compensation anticipated or expected. mean, some,
Mhm.
the industry I used to be in, we would work overtime to get something done because it's more advantageous without charging anybody, so.
Okay.
Just prohibiting them, some, they might sit there and say, hey, within an hour finishing.
Yeah, I don't think the spirit of it is to prohibit, it's just to ensure that there's affirmative agreement to the overtime work before it shows up in an invoice.
My last question, I'll move on quick, is mobilization. And it says that they're not allowed to charge you more than 3% of the contract bid total, but yet it's a line item. My question would be, who cares what they charge? I mean, suppose they were $100,000 less than somebody else, but they're charging 5% on mobilization, you want the lowest bid.
Mhm.
So to reject a bid because of one line item would be kind of unfortunate.
I'll talk those over with PEC. Next item, there's been a couple of, new information on this, the transitional crossing study with DER. I haven't fully read the geotech. I started to read that and glad I'm not a geotechnical person because it's just over my head, but, the others, the slides, I thought they made some improvements from what was presented at the meeting Rick and I were at last week. I do think some of the line charts, I'd like them to disaggregate because you can't really read like the different layers. I appreciate they're trying to put it all on one graphic, but I'd like to have that broken out. Cause you can't really see, like what the lines beneath the way it's layered. But I don't know if there were questions or discussion on those slides, but one interesting point that came up on that, meeting last, I think last Thursday was, that if a culvert size was selected above a certain span, it would become a bridge and subject to Mass DOT review as a bridge. So that's a big threshold issue in terms of permitting and cost. So we'll get into more of that in the future, but I wanted to include in the packet the materials we had
Yeah, I
received.
think we ran into the threshold with the Mill Street Bridge.
That's right, yeah.
Just of 10 feet, so you can have a bridge, I
About
think
10 feet, yeah.
they're talking a 20 foot long. element, so
That's the
10 feet.
maximum that they looked at, yeah.
So what's the next step on this?
I'm not really sure on the geotech, this is it.
Right.
Christine followed up with them. She said, is this, and they, that, as you know, was a separate contract we entered. Unless we have changes on that, that's the final work product. So if you do have questions or comments over the next couple of weeks, not right away, but, we can send that back. As far as the overall DER, transitional, grant, I know the state's focus at this point is toward the kind of best practices guide. So I don't know how much more we can expect on, their focused attention on our specific situation. It was very clear we're not going to get any kind of concept plan or anything like that.
You still think this is worthwhile? It's,
Yeah. I mean, it's, how much does it really help? But I think we're learning something from it. And it's not costing us any money, it's just costing us time.
right.
Well, I think in the end, we will learn something from it, but we won't come out with anything directly actionable. That's what I expect is nothing directly actionable or immediately actionable, but it will inform us. It'll help to inform us over how to deal with that particular stretch of River Road if we decide that we're gonna try to do it. So.
And I may have mentioned this last week, but I had asked them when they went through these slides, Rick and I that day and others. Is this something that they would present at a public meeting, and that is not part of their scope? So this is, we can have it on for further board discussion, but the consultants' attendance is not part of their scope with the DER.
I learned that the Merrimack River runs north south. It's Newbury.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
So then I threw in just some miscellaneous updates under other updates. We had a construction meeting on the Mill Street Bridge last week. That's going well. There is one issue Butch is working with John Eric and the engineers on, which is the extent of guardrail is being recommended to extend the better, kind of go past the extent it was proposed. So Butch, like I said, is working with John Eric on that, and that's going to be recommended. It will be change order. to do more guardrail than was shown, just to have it go further in this direction. So he went out and met on site with them earlier this week, Bush, and
Gonna just step back, on the geotech stuff, there was, I had two notes, I was trying to find them while we were talking, and I didn't, first was, there was a reference, I think it was just a carryover from, either from the Gloucester, the work they're doing in Gloucester, or from some other plan elsewhere, but there's a reference on their page to Stony Brook. And it would be good to just clarify what.
I thought
I
that
think
was the brook.
They
Yeah,
call it
well,
unnamed- they
it-
call it unnamed tribute. I
I-
saw it, it's like everything named it for it.
Yeah, well, it's called unnamed trip, you think they've named it, is that it?
Yeah.
I just didn't know.
Cause I think you'd be hard pressed to find a stone in that brook, there's so much muck in the bottom,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, that's fine.
It doesn't look like it's anything you'd wanna wade into,
Formally known
now
as
if you
Stony
wanna
Brook.
come home with your shoes still. And, yeah, and then you made the note about the bridge and, you know, anything greater in excess of 10 feet that, so, I think we probably want to avoid that if at all possible, if there is action in this, because that really complicates things.
okay, so let's see, beyond that, you know, we had the correspondence come in regarding the ARPA, where we should be in very good shape on that. There might be some additional reporting we need to send, but the documentation is all there and it's all in good shape. And then the indirect costs, you had voted the amended policy last week, so we just sent that around to staff.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Next item is department updates and discussions. So, can you pull that up? So this is just a trail map. Steve Greason, had gone out and done this on his own, and then invited members of the Open Space Committee and myself to just walk it with him. So, this is pretty much an established trail. They were saying that they think you used to mount.
I did, yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I'm familiar, I haven't been out there for over 10 years, maybe
Yeah.
15 years, but, yeah, and there's a lot of what out there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we were out this past weekend, so that, I mean, this, and I have to preface this by saying this is not like the top of the Open Space Committee's priority list. But since I went and there was discussion, I just wanted to share it with you. It would be nice to have another entrance into the Break Hill
Yeah,
area.
yeah, and then it would, then you could, you know, it just makes it more of a through trail, you could have more through traffic or, you know, through options.
Yeah. It really, there are some existing bridges there, so you can see where he says the bridge needed. I think bog bridges would be fine there, but it's really a nice trail. I don't think we have any trails that kind of wind along, or it's really like a bubbling stream, you know, it's really different from what we have in other trail areas.
Well, it's all in the land.
It's all town owned, just general, yes.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from the map either, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, some parts of it are conservation. I think it tells on my map, it shows the conservation. Clay, is it conservation land?
Yeah,
Both parcels that,
I believe most of it, the parcel against Georgetown Road, I think is general municipal, and I think the rest moving back toward Break Hill is conservation.
yeah, so there's two separate parcels that run themselves, yeah.
So this might be, if in fact there was a designated trail there, this might, be relevant to discussion in a hunting working group, as we're probably going to be, as Clay knows, well, you know, we're probably going to be looking at the Break Hill area as.
Okay,
as
well, I'm
one
glad I
potential.
brought this up then,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, and I'm not saying that will happen, but because we're sort of just, that's the next step ahead of us.
identify.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So, I mean, Steve Greason did take the liberty of putting pink flags up, not a lot, but check it out, you can, I'm pretty sure you can follow it, so. Well, that's it, unless there's any.
So at what point would this become kind of like a proposal? Would it follow the trail checklist or?
Well, so that's what would need to be figured out. It's an existing trail, so I don't know whether, you know, we would have to go through that checklist. So, but
I
it's.
guess maybe
this-
just for the bridges or any improvements or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, but Sawmill Brook is their highest priority, and then doing the new trail markers on River Bend and on Break Hill. So
okay.
we're a few years away from this. All right, item D, board commission and committee updates. Capital improvements committee report. Any questions on that?
Appreciate their work.
Yeah, well, at some point, we need to talk, and I guess it'll be an agenda item at some point about, recommended. Well, not just future committee, but also, recommended amount for stabilization,
Oh, okay.
for capital stabilization, because we.
Yeah, I mean, I'm carrying
we
six
took a
hundred
line
in the
on that.
budget, so, yeah,
Excuse me?
I'm carrying 600 in the budget, but, that's something that we could talk about, either tonight or next week when, with the FinCom, but, I didn't have a basis to.
Yeah, well, that was our problem, is we didn't just want to make up
Right.
some other number.
Yeah,
All right, moving on to action items. Item A is a request to amend the 2025 car dealer license. This is Crane Neck Auto. Any questions?
No,
Okay, now make a motion.
yeah, I make a motion that we approve the request to amend the used car dealership license for Crane Neck Auto at 5 Crane Neck Street.
Mhm.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Should I have that here signed?
Do you want to?
Yes, I will have it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Next item is a request for endorsement of proposed location for potential pickleball courts.
So basically the request is, we have not yet expended any funds on it. We have, in the past, week received 3 proposals for a wetlands survey. In response to the scope that we put together that was in, last week's packet, so, we just got a 3rd one today. I met with someone this afternoon. There's one that I think is, kind of most advantageous, both on price and on timing. But I don't want to go ahead with that, even though I think, we could, it's fully within the scope of the funds that was, were approved last spring, but I'd like to make sure the board as a whole is comfortable with continuing with due diligence with this site. It's not a commitment to do it, but it is, taking the next step on wetlands and survey. And, we have received, cost proposals, so that we're putting that together for, next week's CPC meeting. So that'll go out by the end of Monday, the updated CPC funding application.
Any comments or questions on the proposed site?
The one that's in the packet is, I think, by far the best.
Okay.
Least issues.
So are you looking for a vote from the board?
I think if you wanted to just simply endorse to continue with due diligence with this, I'll feel more comfortable, signing a contract for the wetlands and survey and just for your information, the cost of that's probably gonna be under 4,500, so it's pretty, and pretty good. The cost range was like right around 4,000 to about 9,500. But the one that was just under 4,000, it specifically omitted staking the area. So I probably scratched their head about that. So Caitlin's gonna circle back and just have them add that. So as long as that doesn't like double their price.
Right.
And they committed to getting all of the work done within 3 weeks of having an executed contract.
Oh,
So
that's
that's pretty good,
Yeah,
really good.
so that's being paid for out of the prior.
Correct,
Alright.
yeah, out of the feasibility study. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I moved that we endorse the location at by Action Cove.
Behind the playground, because there's 2 locations.
Right,
Right.
yeah, behind the
Yeah.
park.
And continue with the due diligence.
Exactly like that.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you.
All right, item C, request for review and recommendation regarding proposed animal bylaw. This is the same document that we proposed. There were no public comments other than being in favor of it. It has gone through town council review. So we're just voting on whether we support it for town meeting.
I move to support the town meeting.
There was seconds that we already had.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Next item is the colonial power request. So I did touch base with Denise and this screenshot in here is what the West Newbury webpage will look like. Where it says basic service, underneath that, there'll be a line that says Colonial Power, and it'll say that they're our municipal aggregation, company. And, so anybody new to town or anybody that previously opted out, if they log on here, they'll just see that there's already a municipal, power aggregation agreement. That's what it's about. And if we are in agreement with this, then I just have to send an email back to her stating that we are, and that we have just one zip code in this Newbury. Any further questions on that?
It's fine.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
I don't think so.
Okay, select board meeting minutes from June 26th. This is the easiest minutes we've ever reviewed.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually got, hung up in the accreditation and, basically documenting that, Sergeant Parento is a sergeant, no, not an acting sergeant. So it's,
The audio is so bad, I had to listen to it about 20 times.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it's because two of you laughed at one point, and it just garbled the rest of it for some.
no laughing.
But how did that address Parento in here? Because no mention of any names or anything.
No, there was an exhibit in the packet. There were two different, it was the annual reappointments and I think it was EMA in one section and police and this, or police maybe in the other. And so it was, both were before you, but the motion had only captured, or the minutes had only reflected that the motion had captured one, but the motion in fact captured both. So.
Motion.
Okay, but Rick made the original, so I'll give him the courtesy if you want to.
Sure, yeah, I move that we approve the amended minutes of, June 26, 2023.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask one question? Because I went online to look, where are the minutes posted online from select board meetings?
So if you go on to the select board, on the right, there's agendas, and then right below that, it's minutes.
And you can go to prior years.
I don't know that far back.
There's a whole drop down.
On the right
Goes
side.
back
all
how
of it.
far? 2018, earlier?
Long
Before
before
you were-
like
before
20,
you were on the-
I want to say like 2016. Yeah, it goes back quite a while.
2019. Or 19, 19.
Right. Okay, next item, general discussion items. Item A is the MBTA Communities Overlay Zoning District bylaw. I just wanted to put this on just to talk about next steps. Maybe we're all at the meeting that the planning board held. I think equally dismayed by both the tenor of the conversation and the lack of clarity about what was at stake. I would like to propose asking the developer if he'd be willing to come in and meet with the select board and explain what he has in mind. I think, the MBTA Communities Act is about zoning. It's not about a particular parcel. And I think perhaps we leaned too far back, not acknowledging that there is in this case, a developer, on the horizon. So if he could tell us what he would do without the overlay district and what he plans to do with the district, I think that might help us understand, might help residents understand, what's really at stake. So I just want to get your thoughts on that, if you think it's.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree with you. I thought the lack of. Everybody knew Sakis was on their own.
Mhm.
Now he's the person who's got the agreement. Somebody's just got to step up and say, what's your plans, and talk to us. To sit there and not acknowledge that was very discouraging.
Yeah.
So I think this could help, particularly with the abutters, to realize, I saw a couple here. John Sakis is a pretty good guy and a developer, and if you believe he's gonna develop the property, to get a heads up on that would probably be pretty helpful.
So I think if we want to do that, it might be good to have it be a separate meeting. I don't want to try to shoot one right into regularly scheduled meeting.
Let's open it there.
I know you don't mention that.
We have an opportunity to ask some questions.
We'll see. It's not a public hearing. You're welcome to be here, but you're not given them the right to speak. But if you let us talk this out, then I might have a few questions. Okay. So, in terms of scheduling, Angus, do you have any input about what? This is such a,
Yeah, well, obviously the planning board, information session that's been notified to everyone in town via that postcard that was sent, that's April 15th, so it would obviously be important to get clarity as well ahead of that as possible. You have a regularly scheduled meeting next Thursday, or the joint meeting with the FinCom. You do not have anything scheduled for the following Thursday, but my feeling is that's kind of cutting too close.
Yeah, how
So
about does the Tuesday work if we did it on the eighth?
this coming Tuesday, or
On the eighth.
um,
I mean, this all presumes he's willing to come in and talk to us.
Right.
That's
that's open on my calendar, and it's not a planning board night,
Right.
so while it wouldn't be a planning board meeting, they probably wanna attend, and they do meet, as you know, next Tuesday the first, so the 8th is it's open on my calendar.
I forgot my phone, and I think that works for me, but I guess I'll have to make it work.
And what time do you think would be good?
If I'm not doing anything else, I'm not doing anything else, so.
I mean, in general,
Works for me.
6.
Yeah, 6.
I'll do 6 to 6:30, because, yeah, some people probably work and gotta get home.
All right, well, I will reach out to him and see if he's willing. I think we need to make sure that he's not gonna feel attacked. I want this to be a courteous and,
He may have no interest in pretending
I know.
to, I don't know, but if
Yeah.
he does, it'd be helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful for all of us.
What day is that?
We're talking about Tuesday, April 8th at 6 o'clock. So I'm gonna reach out to him, assuming he's interested in coming. We will post that on the town website. If you wanna leave your emails here, I'd be willing to notify you personally. Or you can just,
Would we be notified if he's not interested, one way or the other, so that we know that
I can do
it's
that.
been overlooked? That would be helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So just a quick question though.
Hang on, anything else on board? About what you wanna, the content of the meeting, or, because we won't really have a chance to plan it.
Can you bring them?
I would envision just having him make a presentation before and after, and being able to ask questions, and then see if there are questions from residents.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay,
weird with me.
all right, and then what about, do you wanna have it be remote? I mean, a hybrid meeting, I found that to be challenging for planning. We're having some people online and some people present. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I personally don't like it, but obviously a lot of people do, because there are a lot of people on the remote component, so
Yeah,
I'll leave that to your discretion.
all right, I'll work that out with Angus for. Do you think we'd
I mean, I
have?
do think this room is better equipped for that.
I
It's
do too.
more difficult in the annex, but we held the hearing there knowing that there might be a significant turnout, so I think for this meeting, if it's in this room, I think the hybrid works pretty well.
Mhm.
Quite honestly, the larger screen here helps.
Yeah.
Okay, I can take a couple questions just about what we're planning for the meeting. I don't want to get into the MBTA, overlay district and all that. Did you have a question?
Sure, yeah, I do. Eric Conrad, you want me to speak there?
Sure.
Okay. So I had a question. Again, we were at the planning board meeting. I think you met with the planning board last month in February.
Mhm.
And they went over the two properties, the Dunn versus the Knapp property, and they compared it apples to apples is what they were saying.
Right,
One, the Dunn, and if you didn't want building within the state, within the community, or the Knapp, if we want, I think it was quoted, we had a builder ready to go.
Mhm.
So they made that decision based on knowing there was a builder ready to go on that property to rezone. And that was a biased decision. And many of the people in this room were in multiple meetings last year and specified to the planning board that we did not want that to happen in the town. Many towns have gone forward with making it buildable, but not available. Many, and that's based on the direction from the governor as well. The governor was completely fine with that. They're not looking for immediate building, but this town moved forward against the will of the people. And with a piece of property that's buildable and available, where you have a builder ready to go. And that to me, doesn't make sense, especially at the last planning board, when they said they had no knowledge of a builder. So they're up front at the planning board meeting this past a week ago, they said they had no knowledge of builder. And so until we called them on that, saying that you had these plans last year, you know this builder, you brought it up to the select board in February.
Mhm.
So that's dishonesty. That's clear, and that decision was a biased decision based on their relationship with that builder. It was supposed to be 87 units is what the state dictated to us. The planning board, all those estimates that you heard from the planning board in February were based on 40. On only 40, so that wouldn't even meet the mandate from the state.
Yes, it would. The zoning has to allow for 80. Their point is that because of the property itself, septic availability in town, probably only 40 could be built. As long as you zone for the 80, then you meet the state requirements.
But even the planning board's own website said they needed to find a lot that could fit 87 units. That was the minimum. So it seems like there's a disconnect on that.
Yeah.
But and also the estimates at 40 were very conservative on everything from kids to traffic. 14 cars leaving in the morning out of 40 units.
Yeah.
That's just.
So, is there a question or are you?
Yeah, the question would be is, so the builder will be here.
I'm going to ask him.
Okay.
He's not obligated to attend, but I think it would be
Okay.
him, you know, to.
And these aren't just my questions, this is
I
a group of
understand.
questions
Yeah.
that many people have these
Yeah.
similar, if not many more online.
Yeah, so just in terms of the will of the people, that's at town meeting. I mean,
Okay.
You are a segment of the will
Okay.
of the people, but not the entire town. So-
Correct, it's gonna go to a vote for the town.
Right, so
And then-
that's where you can.
And then on a side note, is there an ethics board within the state, within the town here?
Not within the town, there's
There
a
isn't?
state ethics.
I thought there was an ethics board built a couple of years ago, an HR ethics board.
No,
It was a few years ago, about 5 years ago, there was an ethics board that was built here.
No,
Never happened. Yeah.
no, there's a state ethics committee.
I know there was,
Yeah.
with the hiring of individuals, it was going through an ethics board. Okay, we'll have to follow up on that. then.
Yeah.
There is ethics training.
Sure, there
And,
is.
and there's open meeting law training, but we have no ethics board or ethics committee
You
or.
don't have an ethics committee within your town?
no, you
I
can
don't-
look at the town website and see
Yeah.
all the boards and committees.
Okay.
Yeah. If
And-
you have
and-
specific questions about, you can talk to Jim
I will.
Blatchford, our
I
town
will.
clerk, you can,
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
sure. Any other questions about the meeting that we're contemplating having? Okay. Did you provide? sign up? Okay, so if you want to be notified whether or not we're having the meeting and you put your email address or phone number, we're happy to let you know, okay?
Email to you.
This is for us to let them know if we're gonna have a meeting.
I know if somebody's listening online and can't get the email right now,
Oh, sure,
they could email it to the select board account. You,
good thought. So if anybody online wants to also be on this notification list, you can email selectboard@wnewbury.org and I'll add you to the list. Thanks, Chris. Mike, did you?
Yeah, Angus, the traffic study information and also the fiscal impact information are both on the website.
They are on the website. I will say, I think they're not as prominent as, and I can work with the staff to make it more. They're embedded in the text, so if you read the text and it says that's here, and you just click here and it pops right up, so it's. If you read the website, you will find it. It will take you 3 minutes, but I think, maybe it needs to be bigger, text or something,
So-
but yes, it's all on the website.
Okay,
yeah.
so I guess my point for anybody in the audience who's interested, the presentations that were for the studies that were presented to the town, both for fiscal impact and for traffic, are available. And you could even go back, we'd have to, I'm not sure which date select board meeting that was, but the presentation was done to the select board of both. And as well as the presentations are on the website.
Yeah, I've got the page here, and you can see that, I mean, there's so much information, so there's various links, like, you just click the link and it'll look it up.
Okay, right, that's
But
right,
look,
so you go-
I would acknowledge there's a lot of information,
Yeah.
but if people take the time to, they will find what they're looking for.
I only mentioned because there's a
It's all
question,
here, yeah.
there seems to be some question about the numbers.
Yeah.
And the assumptions that are made, and so anybody can understand where those numbers and assumptions came from.
And I just would know that this is not on the planning board or the select board website. We have a special town project, so if you are having trouble finding it.
Yeah, there is also information from the planning board,
Yeah.
page as well.
Okay,
Just one more thing on that topic,
Yeah.
different from the, upcoming or potential upcoming meeting, but there was a question that had come up at a staff level as to whether if there were to be a bylaw approved by town meeting, and if subsequent to that, Housing and Livable Communities, the state agency had revisions, do they have? Could they make those revisions, or would that need to come back to a vote? The town planner and I do have a call scheduled for this coming Monday with the state to get an answer to that question, so.
Okay.
Let you know what I find out.
Right. Next item is, let's see, further evaluation of the library building and proposed HVAC replacement. So, there's nothing in the packet on that.
I think I had put in your
Yeah.
email with the summary, but not the proposal that
Yeah,
came
so
in
did you see
yesterday.
the proposal? Then, that was a separate email came in. Was that yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
Okay.
I did see it at some point, yeah, it's also in the packet with the
For the
FinCom
reserve
related,
fund.
so it's. in.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we need to discuss that now?
Not really, unless, it's on the joint. Yeah, so.
I mean, I'd be favorable either way, because to go forward without that, people.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I did, I think, Wendy, you know this, but, the checklist you had provided from, 2019, I did go through that with Brian, and I have that, if that comes up later in terms of everything that's been done.
Okay.
And so forth, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would be very helpful for them to.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Moving on, Break Hill Terrace update.
So I had a couple of, I think the board had talked at the last meeting. I think the general direction of this potential adoption of the policy for the ability to dedicate a road as private, open to the public is something that's of interest. But we had a couple of legal questions, so I sent those over to town council and looking to get a response back next Thursday. So that's not going to be on for tonight. It's on for next Thursday's joint meeting, but I wanted you to be aware of the questions that have been sent. There is some language in one of the statutes that the way I read it suggests, or could suggest that, it raises the question as to whether the board in fact has the authority to bring a question like this to town meeting, or whether it needs to go to a ballot. And whether, and whether it might need 200 registered voters to petition. It's strange language. I have never seen anything like it in other MGLs. And, I hope that's not the answer, but, it says, so that section 6C is what authorizes the dedication of, or kind of assignment of this private open to the public. And it references chapter 40, section 6D. When you read that, it says, section 6C shall be submitted for acceptance to registered voters at an annual town meeting upon petition of 200 registered voters, or 20% of the total number of voters, substantially in the form of the following question, which should be placed on the official ballot used for the election of officers at such city or town election. Now, that could be that standard article on town meeting that talks of, it might not be a ballot, but it's a question of this issue of the 200 voters. I want confirmation. Does the board in fact have the ability to bring this question to town meeting, or we're gonna need to tell residents that they need to gather signatures? So we'll get an answer.
Well, that's even further complicated thing, because it has to be placed on the official ballot used for election of officers in such city.
We have to have a meeting right after, another town meeting after, right?
Well, no, it would have to be the annual election.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, so we
Yeah,
could
yeah.
get May and then
Next-
another town.
next
or
May.
wait till the following.
yeah. So it's I hope
Yeah.
that's not true, but I was thinking, earlier this week, I thought I might just shoot a quick email to the neighbors and say, hey, I didn't, because I don't
Yeah.
want to have to walk it. I mean, here we are, but it's all public. That's fine, but I don't want to get people's hopes up until we fully understand. I think it was a great suggestion Rob brought forward. I hope it works. I think it's a appropriate, resolution to the matter, but where it was just introduced in the last 2 weeks, we're still doing our.
If in fact, the conclusion is, if town council's opinion is that, yes, we do need 200 registered voters to sign the petition. If the homeowners were to take it upon themselves now, would we be willing to reopen the warrant to allow that to go on the ballot?
Well, I don't know if it's-
Printed?
The issue is, I submitted yesterday about.
But you don't have the time anyway, before legal gets back, to you,
Yeah.
that's even the right process,
Yeah,
both sale.
so I think if, you know, if town council ends up coming back and saying this has to be taken up at an election, not at a town meeting. Then I think the question before the board is gonna become how to handle winter operations next winter, but, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay,
Get to it.
we'll follow it when we get to it.
Gonna say, it's no bridge here, is it?
All right. Look at that, we're done 15 minutes early.
Yeah.
See you next week.
There's nothing else we can do, right?
That's your correspondence.
No correspondence.
My recess for 15 minutes and. Structure.
Is it worth going in an executive session for 15 minutes or?
I don't think so. All right, so do you want to, if you recess, I'll just kind of turn off the.
Okay,
Recess until 6.
We don't
okay.
recess until 6 o'clock.
You don't think there's anything that it's worthwhile doing?
No, cause you gotta move people out, you gotta shut it off, and it's just.
Yeah, that's
All right.
kind of what I was thinking. Okay.
All right, let's get calzones.
Yeah, you go, I'll run it out.
All right, if you could just say that so that everyone here knows that you will not be being.
Okay, we're recessing for 15 minutes until the joint meeting with Finance Committee at 6 o'clock.
Got this full system.
Just gonna give our fourth member of the FinCom a few minutes to log in. It's just 6 o'clock.
Well, as you all know, 6:01 is the real starting time, even without Jim here. It's always 6:00.
Which computer you-
Yeah, exactly. Because Rick will always correct us.
Right, absolutely. I go by.
He doesn't get here till 6:03.
Rick was early tonight. I just wanna
Yeah,
let you
no,
know.
right.
Yeah, so that actually, that's credit for the next few meetings.
Yeah, you banked 3 minutes.
And so I just checked, Rob, he can't be 20 time zones away, because it's like 24 around the world, so. the
I
motion
know,
goes-
as soon as I said it, I knew it was correct. Yeah, I know, come on. Give me a break.
Maybe it's a different day.
I think so, but.
We went to Greece and he came back 4 times one day away.
So you did text him, Rob? Did he answer? Ross?
Yes, he hasn't yet. So we have a quorum. Good news is we have a quorum.
All right. So
I'm here.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys knew that, but I am here.
hey,
Wow.
oh, good.
Impressive.
Ross is in. All right,
All right, great, thanks. you
Six
guys.
oh one,
All right, you're right.
thank you.
So we are returning from recess, Jim? No, okay. And you're writing?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want to call meeting to order for your committee?
We have 5 in attendance, we're in order. 3 a year, so that even if the computers go down, it's still recording.
Okay. So we're starting with education, right, Rob? You're in agreement on that? Okay, so Angus, do you want to pull up the budgets, or how do you?
Sure, so we have representatives from both Pentucket Whittier here, and we also have Essex Ag as part of the budget, but they're not here, their budget's not approved yet, so that still carries estimated amount, but that's how it's handled every year, so it's really up to the chair whether you're gonna start with Pentucket or Whittier, but I will pull up the budget document for education.
I think Pentucket is in first, right?
Yeah. As you know, the initial budget that I presented on February 13th carried estimated amounts. Since that time, each of the Pentucket and Whittier school committees have voted the West Newbury assessment, so that's why these numbers are shaded in orange, just to indicate that they changed from the initial February 13th numbers. In both cases, they went down.
Yep. Any questions from the board? Yes, board.
I more of a comment and a concern. I'm glad Dr. Bartholomew is here. And I already sent the letter to Angus, he sent it to you, school choice is my beef.
Sure. You wanna come up and talk?
Can I ask the question, and then you can beat me up? Because I was on school committee, it was probably 11 years ago, because we're phasing the last group out. It was we had school choice at the time, it was over 200 students, it was, in my opinion, killing the budget. Jonathan was there, and you could never quite balance it. And at one point, a previous superintendent wanted to add another 50 slots when you had to balance the budget, which is illogical because it doesn't work that way. You can add more teachers. So a lot of effort, and then a new superintendent, we were able to convince people to move on from school choice. And I know you don't agree with my math because it is crude math, and that's the way it's intended to be. You in the press release I saw from Mr. Guilfoyle, they say Pentucket is 19,500 in rough numbers to educate a student, choice 5,000 in general. So I say you're losing 14,500. I understand that's not true. If you have an empty seat in the classroom, that's all money you put in your back pocket. But going in with 80 students the first year is a lot, and there is going to be costs, and maybe you don't have to add teachers, but there will be costs. I just think going back down the path of getting into school choice is a dangerous way to try and prop up a budget. I would rather have seen our number go up 150,000 more. So not the net, you're gonna end up with 400,000 more. 80 kids at 5,000 apiece. And if you do the math for the cost, you saw the email, my complaint was, basically it's $1,160,000. If you do the 19,500 less the 5, is the cost that this district is paying to educate students outside of our district. And so my question then would become, why is it okay to accept $5,000 to educate a student from outside the district, yet the taxpayers should be satisfied paying 19,500 to educate within the district? It's just frustrating. And it's a path I wished we hadn't gone down again, so.
Come up, sit down with us.
Well, just to make sure that Owl picks you up if you could.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
So I think it's a great question, fair question, and I would say the first part, we also wish that you'd be able to give us $150,000 more. And unfortunately, when the school committee looks at this, it's not something that they can look at in a vacuum. They have to hear from the other towns as well. And as you know, the restrictions that get put on the other towns impact what you're able to pay. So if you were able to give us the extra 150, they'd have to go up. And based on what we heard, or the school committee heard, that would put them in an override. And that was something I think I know we've been trying to avoid until we have to. The further we can get away from the last override, the more likely we are to be able to get one passed when we need to. So I don't think anyone on the school committee was super psyched about having to go the school choice route either. Cost wise, yeah, so exactly what you said, you're right, there's raw numbers, there's actual numbers, so it's just 19,500, I think, is the cost for an out of state person, what they would have to pay. per pupil expenditure gets done, of course, by, here's all your expenses for in-district, if you can do, there's an in-district per pupil expenditure, there's an out-of-district, but it is still just somewhere like $19,261, somewhere around there, I believe. In the days of yore, I'm glad you had mentioned that, if a student comes in and they get into kindergarten, they have the right to stay the entire time, so you are paying for that student all the way through. What's not, what is well known is exactly what you said, you can't add teachers in order to bring students in. So for us, when we look at it, we will, in no time in the near future, be able to have students come in for school choice into the elementary level. But the high school numbers for the last couple of years are in the 130s and 140s. And the middle school right now is where they're now, they're right around, hovering around 180 is where they're at. There's fifth grades at 200. So we know that big wave is coming. This is the only opportunity that school choice would have to fill empty seats. So the expense to us of those students coming in, there is definitively a risk. So if you have a student that comes in and they have, if they already have documented needs, that district actually pays you more than $5,000. $5,000 is the minimum amount of money that you get. In fact, right now, we have a student who choices out, and I believe that student's $68,000. The student costs $68,000, so the receiving district's getting $68,000, not $5,000. But there is a risk, like time could definitely be an issue. Like if you're a teacher, you've got to grade those papers, you've got to create curriculum. And if there's a behavioral thing, yes, you'd have to deal with that. But the overall risk is minimized. That's just down to 9 to 12. 80 students, I think, is ambitious. I've said this and people have said, come on, we fill that in a heartbeat. Because when you consider who are the students who are going to be coming here, and the conversation with school committee, it's not that this is done, again, in a vacuum and isolation. We're super aware of what our surrounding communities, the struggles they're having, and we get emails consistently about if we're gonna open up, because one of our neighbors, they don't offer AP courses anymore. And if things don't go well, they won't have honors courses anymore. So, the caliber of students that we might get, obviously you get some diversity, which is always good. But you're not getting students who are just trying to find another place to go. You're trying to find people who care about their education. So, yeah, I think, and the school committee heard this from me as well, like, it could be some of our budget numbers that come back, things that we're waiting on. To make sure that we had to fill a 1.125 shortfall, 1.125 million shortfall. So if those numbers come back, the ones we're waiting on, and so there's a contract that's out there. If they come back super favorably, the school committee can about face and say, hey, we're not gonna do this. But as a whole, it's a minimum risk. It's as minimal as risk as we're going to have for school choice to give it a shot. That does not mean it's going to continue in perpetuity. It's 9 through 12 just this year. And the reason why is, again, because the 8th grade, 7th grade, they have 180 kids in each of those grades. And we will not have the capacity we would have to add a teacher in order to add school choice kids again next year. And you can't do that in order to participate in school choice. So, yeah, I absolutely, if you do the math that way, Mr. Weil, you're 100% correct. It comes out to be that it's, what did you say, it's 1.14 billion.
1,160,000.
There you go. That's what it would be. The actual reality of it is that there's not empty seats, but the classes are much smaller because those grades, 10, 11, 12 in particular, are very small. So those are filling what would have been had of seats. I think they're graduating about 160 this year. And next year's grade is 135, so you're down 25 kids. So if you add 20, there's already the teachers there to do it. You have the capacity.
So if you were to accept school choice students for next year, would they be guaranteed a spot each year that they're in high school?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Once you're in, you're in. That's why they don't take them at the elementary level, because you can only put 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have, there is no teacher space, seat space in the elementary for school
But
choice.
as the wave comes through, you can limit it to 10th, 11th, 12th, 11th, 12th. You can drop grades as
100%.
the wave goes through. Just to clarify, when you get the 68,000 for someone with special needs, that's because you're incurring 63,000 expenses. They're paying, they're just
That's
basically paying you for, so you're not getting 68, you're getting net 5.
Yeah, so you did that, that's sending district, so there's a thought that, well, oh my goodness, this student's coming to us and they need a support person with them. And now Kentucky's paying, well, Kentucky doesn't pay, the other district is paying you the money to pay for that support person. So that is 100% accurate.
So isn't it true that in the 19,000, the bulk of that is fixed cost, and by adding a student, the incremental cost of adding a student is minimal?
Well, refine the question. Does the 19,000 include the cost of the new high school?
No, not capital.
I think Dennis was asking a different question.
Right,
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it is fixed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's marginal costs that change, not fixed costs. In other words, if you don't have to hire a teacher, there are some incremental costs, but they're not large.
Yeah, that'd be super.
And I acknowledge it's not the 1,000,001 when you get done.
Right.
Yeah, it's somewhere below that, but it is a cost. And all I'm saying is, as taxpayers, we have to pay 19,500 for a kid. You can bring somebody in from another community for 5,000. No, not at all. It's disturbing.
Like, and again, it's just.
Eventually, you're gonna have to deal with the issue. If you take these 4 grades, and then the middle school is following up, they're gonna float out. You're gonna have to deal with it in 4 years anyways.
Right.
So you're just kicking the can down the road at this point.
100%. Yeah, but no one's gonna deny, like, well, we've been trying to stay afloat for several years, but we've had reductions every single
Yeah,
year.
this is kind of a very, and this is a negative, but you're kind of grasping at straws right now. And I don't mean that in a negative, I mean, you're doing what you have to do.
That's correct.
You're proposing what to do, what you have to do.
Sure.
In order.
This is
Yeah.
incremental income until we get to the point where we
Have
have
to
to deal
deal
with
with
the waves.
So does,
It's gonna hurt even more.
we're currently
It's a big thing.
penalized because our student population has been on a decline, right? Is that, this funny, it's a complicated formula.
Yes, very
and I-
complicated, but
you know,
that is part
there are
of
moments where I understand very small bits of it and then I let it go. So, but in general, we're effectively being penalized because we have been on a downward sloping curve, not an upward sloping curve in terms of students, correct?
Yes,
So by taking in 80 students, does that help us?
yes,
Okay.
they will count on our chapter 70 formula. And I think that the term we're being penalized, that's almost a clawback is the way most of us, that they overpaid us in the past and now they're trying to get it back. But of course, we've seen, if you read the paper, almost every single day now, we see the outcome of that to communities like ours and smaller.
We had a meeting on February 25th. I think the select boards of FinComs were all there. And I was very optimistic because at one point you said, and you explained it, that these choice students are floating out. And this was our last year.
Last group.
And then I saw this thing the other day and it's like, oh. So I would have rather heard it then, I guess.
Well, we didn't know then, right? And so we didn't know what the full, until all the numbers came, we had an idea, we weren't sure. But in order to, like that, so 400,000 will be the maximum. We're hoping maybe 300,000 comes out of that. Are we kicking the can? I mean, there's no question. Yes, we're trying to keep level services for us this year would require $2.5 million.
But I would say that to Chris's point, these discussions of Plan Bs should probably happen along with the other presentations. That's what I take.
Sure. I think if we know at that point in time that, yep, this is what we're looking at, this is how we're gonna address it. I think there was a list that we came up with at the March 4th meeting, where it said, look, these are all the things that we could possibly be looking at. And then the other one you might have heard about is pre-K, right? So preschool got added in because it was a conversation, you're trying to problem solve, how could you possibly come up with 1.125 without having to cut the number of personnel, teachers and support staff. And so that came up at the 11th hour as well, as to how we might be able to do it. And that felt really icky as well, because by providing a service like that, then saying to families, hey, I philosophically believe pre-K should just, every child should have access to pre-K. But by doubling up fees like that, and by offering full day pre-K, there's a group of students who just won't get access. And that's not good, but that's the position that the state funding formula has put us in. And unfortunately, of the 3 towns, you're the one town who has the ability to pay for things which you need. And the other 2 towns seem not to be in that position, so it's we're just put in a difficult spot.
But even if you fund it with this 400,000 now, 4 years from now, those kids are gone. It's gonna be double that 400,000, because you're gonna have other issues clouding, it, that, plus you're fully burdened with the kids that are coming up. So,
If I go back to my earlier comment, the further away we can get from the last override, the better chance we would have of an override passing.
but it's gonna be a much bigger override then, that's what I'm saying, right now, it's
I don't
also
disagree.
incremental in a different way.
I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, I can tell you right now, I would guess just the way healthcare costs, and I think the important thing, and you all know this, that same increases you're facing, we're facing, there is nothing there that we really have the control over, like that's gone up, like that's not, we're not talking about contracts that are absurd, obscene, like we're not overstaffed, there's none of that, it's the things we can't control. So when we play this out, I can always guarantee if we're looking at next year, double digits in health insurance again, and special education costs and transportation, you're gonna be probably about somewhere around 2.5 million or so again. And we have 3 options, right? You can cut people, you can increase fees, or you can generate revenue. And that's kind of what we've been trying to do, but it's a combination, we do all 3.
I just feel like choice is selling your soul to the devil, just is so.
So I'd say also, like, it's important, I think, to look back historically in that, I think we had a run of 3 years in a row where the valedictorian or salutatorian were both choice students.
Well, believe me, there's nothing wrong with the kids, and we had choice. Now, I would say they were an exceptional group of kids.
But the cost wise.
It's the money, yeah, it's not the people, the people
Yeah,
are fine people, I'm not diminishing that at all.
So I think to Mr. Phillips' point, like, next year, when we end up, when 8th grade matriculates in 9th grade, there's unlikely to be choice for 9th grade, it would only exist in 10, 11, and 12, and it will just phase itself out, but it's a 3-year, 4 years is what it would end up being.
This is a stopgap measure that actually brings in incremental revenue. A lot philosophical differences aside, I'd like to thank you for what you're accomplishing over there. And we can disagree as to whether school choice is good or not.
I'm not picking on them,
He's
he's got
not,
an
yeah.
impossible job to do, I understand
right.
that, and you made me cringe when you say
To Chris's
fees
point-
again, because that's as distasteful as choice,
That's
really.
distasteful, and that can start excluding people from
Yeah.
activities they should be able to join in.
I'd rather see,
So,
again,
so all I would say is not about tonight, not about this year, which thank you very much for doing what you did this year. Like Chris has been saying, we got conversations coming up, not for tonight, but the conversations coming up are gonna be even more difficult. So.
I'd rather see it pushed to, an override for the other communities, that's because whether it's next year, the year after, or 4 years, it's gonna become more difficult for them too. So to chop it in little bits becomes more palatable.
Yes, I mean, and I think the school committee, I think when they voted the budget, they were well aware of the likelihood of an override passing this year. And they obviously were not confident in it.
Any questions from either you, Leanne, Dennis, Ross, or Jim? Do you have any questions or comments?
I'm all set. This is Ross. I don't have any comments.
All right, thank you.
Nor do I.
Okay, Jim, thanks.
Jim, say something in Greek.
I'm actually in Japan right now, so maybe I should say arigato or.
What a world travel, my God, unbelievable.
All right.
So in an ideal world, in the next 3 to 4 years, there'll be some legislative change that's in an ideal world, obviously.
Well, so I know for certain, there has been far more, again, so when I did the presentation, pull slides from past history, because we've seen this train coming, but we're small. We don't have the voice, we can go out and talk to our representatives, but now that you have schools from significant places that are closing, you have districts that are floundering really, really badly. Some of the representatives are being much more understanding. I know Senator Lewis has a bill to review Chapter 70. Senator Tarr's had that out there forever. But now it's gained a large amount of momentum. And I know tomorrow superintendents are all meeting with the legislators for a 3-hour meeting, but the whole list of, we used to do a presentation. This is just, these are the issues. Tell us what you're doing to help us and how can we help you? Because if you have Project 211. You should check it out. It's started with the Mass Association of Regional Schools, and they've really brought on a lot of legislators and a lot of groups to support redoing this formula because
It has great inequities in it.
huge.
Yeah.
It was done correctly at the time, but it's 30 years
Yeah,
old.
but it's 30 years in Boston will mess up.
Yes, 100%. And representatives are outnumbered by the cities. Small towns are outnumbered.
Yeah,
by the
right,
cities.
it's always controlled by Boston cities.
Yeah, Angus did include a lot of correspondence about Project 211 in the packet.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay, do I have a motion for the select board? On the budget?
Yeah, I guess I would move that we, approve the, Nantucket assessment for the budget
Let's take them out.
of $9,766,666.
Which, by the way, is $1 more than the letter, but.
Oh, thank you.
You must have, you know, that's what my math says.
Also, with that excess, you only need two.
Drop it down to 79 seats.
All right, I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we move to approve the Nantucket assessment for $9,766,666.
I second.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Pam, Ross, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Ross is in favor.
I
Who's up?
vote.
Okay, good, thank you both. Thank you.
Adequate, Jim?
No, point of order, it's not.
What, Jim said yes and Ross said yes.
No, the memo we sent,
Technically, it is supposed to be a full roll call vote of the entire.
when you have remote participation.
Well, okay, so that wasn't what we were doing before.
And this
The
is,
state, the state just had a training about 2 weeks ago and
Oh,
they keep
okay, so
moving.
now that, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So we have to do a full roll call.
Yeah.
We have to redo all the votes you did earlier.
Even though we're unanimously all five.
just say Phillips, aye.
Phillips, aye.
Dennis, aye.
Dennis, I.
Dennis.
Jim, I.
Yeah, they said, yeah.
Ross, aye.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Rob, it's the rules. We play by the rules.
Yeah, just communicate it.
I believe a memo was sent to all board and committee chairs. Just saying. All right.
That we didn't read it.
All right.
The chairs?
Yeah.
No wonder I didn't know.
Sorry, I guess I should have distributed it to my committee.
We
All
got
right.
it, we got it.
All right. Whittier, moving on.
Sure.
It was in the packet.
Okay,
Hello, how are
moving
you?
on.
So I put together a little presentation. Do you have time for that or?
Sure, I'll
Go through it really quickly?
Like 5 minutes?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Do you have, anything you need me to load here or?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
I think I'm not
Okay.
attached to the Wi-Fi if I
Great.
was, because.
Okay, yep.
It's the public Wi-Fi if you wanted to.
Do you want me to try?
That way the
what's
people
the
at
last
home
word?
could,
It's,
WN, it's right behind you. on
Right behind
the bulletin board.
Sure, pass it out to Rob, I really have it.
That's why I stopped.
This is cutting into my 5 minutes?
No.
is the idea she's gonna email it to me or?
I'm not sure. I just want.
Do you have an email? Because if you email it to me, I can load it onto here. That's gonna probably work best.
Do you have Google? Can we do Google?
We just send it to my town email account. Can you do that?
It's admin, West Newbury.
No, town manager at Newbury. You want to just get started and then
Okay.
once I get it, we can catch up for this, for the people who know.
So Chairperson Reed, members of the committee, finance and select board, Angus, and Mr. Blatchford, which I heard great things that you just won some big award. So congratulations. Thank you for having me here tonight. This is just a really great opportunity for us to share a little bit about Whittier Tech and what's going on at Whittier, and so thank you. So Whittier Tech's West Newbury enrollment, right now it's 13 students. With 13 students as of the October 1 report. So, or I shouldn't say 13 students right now, the October 1 report, there's 11. So West Newbury students, we have 2 in the 9th grade, 4 in the 10th, 2 in the 11th, and 5 graduating this year. Our foundation enrollment, we are up 6 students this year as we move forward. Enrollment by CTE area. I just wanted you to see where your kids are pursuing their trade area. So we have 24 trade areas right now, and 10 of the trade areas are filled with West Newbury students. Catching up pretty quick there, Angus. So this is, I think it's important to see, we really encourage our students to go on co-op because they have that work experience before they go out into the trade area. This provides them the support that they need to be successful in their senior year, so that we know that they have the skills that they need. On slide 7. So co-op, co-op employers, we work with Koinonia Early Childhood Center. And as you can see right now, we of all the CTE schools in the state, we are the highest for co-op employed students. So Whittier Tech graduates post-high school plans, 2-year college, 23.5% last year, 4-year college, 32, 2.5 for military, and then 33.5% of our students went off to work.
This is all students, not just.
Yes. Budget considerations, obviously payroll, health insurance, you've heard a lot about health insurance, other insurances, realignment of opportunities for our students, the social emotional health of our students. I hate saying that COVID word, but we are still, dealing with some of the things that have happened during that. And obviously, you know very well about the capital needs that are happening at Whittier Tech. So our good budget goals were to be fiscally responsible while meeting the needs of our students, keeping our CTE programs up to date to meet the needs of today's workforce, and then plan for the future of Whittier Tech's building. So reasons for the budget increase: contractual obligations, health and retirement costs, capital costs, including the OPM for wastewater. As you know, we put out a bid for a OPM for our wastewater treatment plant. We are hoping that we are going to be able to fix it short term, for the next 5-10 years, but we don't know until we actually start getting an in-depth study. That is our goal, because we don't want to waste good money after that, especially if we're back into the MSBA pipeline again, but we do need to stay open. Personally, I think we're 5 to 8 years before ever walking into a new building. That's if everything continues to move forward. And then obviously technology. Decrease, we've been very lucky to receive many grants for equipment, realignment of our CTE programs. We did a reduction, a school committee voted on a reduction of 3 CTE programs that were under enrolled. And what we are doing with those programs, we're closing the programs, but we're using the staff for programs that students are very interested in. Right now, our plumbing and heating program has had a huge boom, as well as our HVAC. So our highest programs right now are electrical, plumbing and heating, and HVAC programs. We're kind of seeing that go back to the old trade programs that are really where the kids' interests are right now. Shifting our lease costs to transportation and revolving, and then reducing our health insurance from 10 to 7%.
Which programs were eliminated?
What programs?
Yeah.
Early education and care, design and visual, and construction craft laborers. So we just opened construction craft laborers this year, and they only had to drop 2 students. So we can't keep the program open with 2 students.
So, yeah, I'm not objecting, I'm just curious, what does that program entail, construction?
It's a little bit of everything, but the great thing is we have had great associations with the unions. So really, if the students finish that program, they're able to go right into the construction craft laborers union very quickly. We've had great relationships with them. We're hoping that that continues. Because one of the other programs that we were looking at possibly closing was masonry. But we've decided to keep masonry open, and we're hoping that the students that were interested in construction craft labor will go into masonry.
What do you mean, reduce health insurance 10 to 7%?
So we're budgeting 10% for health insurance, and we
Oh,
just
for the
found out.
percent increase, got it.
Yes, we
Okay.
just found out,
Yeah.
we're between 5 and 7%.
Thanks.
So we've been really lucky for grants. As you know, entitlement grants, we're all a little bit worried about. Title I, Title IIA, Perkins, that's a big program or big grant for us for our CTE programs. So we've been very lucky that way, but we've also been really lucky to receive many capital skills grants. And this year we received a capital skills grant in welding for about $1 million. So that's a bill for us to be able to buy equipment, do some rehabbing of some of the space, because right now it looks like a cellar. And we're hoping that, again, we don't want to put too much money into the building. We want to buy the equipment so that we're able to take that equipment and bring it to a new facility, hopefully. So we've been really lucky to get that. In the past, we received grants in advanced manufacturing, our health, dental, and medical program, we received a grant in HVAC. So we've been very lucky, and that really helps the district because those are funds that we don't have to ask you for. So most of our equipment has been taken care of by grants. The equipment is obviously very expensive.
Are these state grants or?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And last year we received an anonymous donor, gave us $500,000 for some of our programs. So again, very lucky to receive the grants that we've been able to receive. So budget overview, our required net school spending is $28,238,744. Our chapter 78 is $13,953,373. And our district budget is $32,353,003, up 3.63%. It's interesting that our mandated net school spending for West Newbury is 3.83. So our actual district budget is lower than the actual mandated net school spending. So the total community assessments is $17,099,630. So capital assessment, $695,000 this year. Again, what we're looking at doing is trying to keep us open and moving forward and hoping that, we move forward with a new feasibility study. So we need to replace electrical panels. We have some classrooms that have no heat and then other classrooms that have too much heat. At one point this winter, we had an air conditioner in one of the classrooms because the room was so hot. And then other rooms are saying we're freezing. So the maintenance and facilities people at Whittier do just an amazing work. Our Jim Reisner replacement up above the ceiling, up above the roof in the gym, $92,000. Exterior brickwork. That's work that we have to do because it's starting to crumble that we really need to take care of. And then obviously the OPM for the wastewater study, it's for a total of $695,000.
What is the gym rate?
I was just gonna ask that.
I think it's like the air conditioning, the air vent.
Oh, is that like the
Yeah.
name of a manufacturer or something?
No, it's because he told me I spelled it wrong originally. So
Are you familiar with that term? Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
So for students for FY25, you had 15. This year you have 11, which is 4 less students. Minimum contribution is $57,954 less than last year. Transportation assessment is down $1,277. Capital assessment is up $3,910. Other educational assessments down $5,956,000. So the total assessment is down $61,277 for this year. So strategic plans, obviously, and I know Angus and Chris have been very involved in the municipal meetings. We're working through that. I think there's some great progress that's been happening, but obviously planning for that. Eligibility and feasibility study for MSBA. And then expansion of our adult evening programs. Our adult evening programs, we probably have between 350 to 400 adults taking classes. And I think Dr. Bartholomew even took the class this year.
Masonry?
Bees, bees.
Nice.
So is that a revenue generating?
So yes, in some ways, right? So that's, if we have classes in the night school program, like plumbing, so we have a plumbing and heating program, we can use buy equipment from the night school plumbing for the day school as well, because it's used for both day and night. Then our per pupil expenditure, as you can see, we are one of the lowest per pupil expenditures of all the CTE schools in the state. So a little bit more than 5 minutes. Any questions? Any questions from the board?
The masonry project. Can the students do that?
What masonry project?
You talked to many
Exterior, no, because it's on the sides of the walls, no. The kids have done masonry projects.
Work, huh?
Is it just repointing? Is that what they need to do, or are they replacing?
They have to replace it, yeah, they have to, especially at the back of the building when you come in from the south parking lot. That's really where the issue is, and then above, where the poet's in, and above some of the doorways. So,
Then just another comment in our packet, page E11 says, it lists all the towns in addition what they pay. Sort of chuckle, we're at 239,000, you go to Haverhill, 8.7 million. I mean, it's a staggering difference, just. See all companies.
We are the lowest, right?
It's not bragging, but yes, we are.
Yeah. Any questions from the FinCom?
Nice presentation.
Yeah,
What?
you.
By the way, I forward on that email to our parliamentarian. So that from now on, so, all 5 of us, including Ross and Jim, have we done a motion? Are we gonna discuss it?
Well, we haven't done a motion.
Okay, you just asked him a question.
I was just wondering if there's any further questions.
So, no,
All right, do I have
Make
a
a
motion?
motion, yeah, make a motion to accept the video budget for $239,410.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
we have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the Whittier budget for $239,410.
Would you have to announce his name?
No.
Just when he
Is
votes.
there a second?
Second that.
We have a second. We have 3 seconds. So does anybody else, have any discussion, questions? Hearing none. Dan, would you conduct the roll call?
Phillips,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Yes.
Jim,
Jim, yes.
Dan, yes. Roger.
Thank you.
All right, see, it's not so hard.
No, well, when you turn it over to someone who's confident, yeah. They're very nice. I did have a question, but you've done very well, so thank you. Not all questions need to be answered right now.
On that note. All right, thank you, education peeps.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good to see you again. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.
All right.
And that's what we're short at 6 tag, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and just, I think it's important on this one to know that we always do this based on, we never know how many students there will be at this stage of the cycle. So there is always the potential we would need to come back. We're basically making 2 assumptions with this number. One is the head count, which is obviously the biggest variable. And then assuming what's going to be the increase in the budget, we're carrying 5%. If the headcount remains the same, but the increase is greater, we would need to come back in the fall.
Okay.
If the headcount increases, the number will go up significantly. So I think we've known that now for many years, but that's just the way that.
It's a little bit like ice and snow. that you learn out a little later than what you need after you've set the budget.
Yeah.
But like you say, we can take it up in the fall.
Yeah, so unlike Whittier, where our apportionment is based on head count, but they make an assessment and we can bank on that. With the Essex Act, it's different. If it's more of a tuition thing, so if the head count goes up one, the number will go up by, it's about 20, it's in the low to mid 20s per student.
Right, so we'll hold off on voting.
No, we would vote it, because we don't know that by the time.
No, then it
But
falls.
we
Yeah, we
have to adjust it later on.
Yeah, it's based on the October 1st, head count.
Make a motion, we accept the Essex North Shore agricultural budget line item for $107,020.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to accept the Essex North Shore Ag budget amount for $107,020.
A second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none? Dan,
Phillips,
aye.
Dennis,
aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dan, I.
Like on a fire ship.
I know.
Aye. Do we all do ayes then?
All right,
So next,
So next we have-
we're gonna do planning.
Yep.
It's, there's really no change, basically level, funded other than, cost of living adjustment, and there was a modest increase proposed in the expense budget, by $1,000, but that's been a fairly, that's been a level funded for a number of years, and, so,
can you pull that up?
Yeah. Page 4 of the FinCom packet. So.
I am here, if you do have any questions.
Thanks, Katrina. For those who haven't met her, Katrina is our new town planner, began in the mid-fall.
Questions by the board?
Make a motion, to accept the planning line item budget of $92,656.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
We still got FinCom.
Make a
Oh, okay.
motion to accept the town planning budget of $92,656.
A second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Rob,
Aye.
Dennis,
aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dan, I.
Thank you.
You're all thinking pirates now, aren't you?
Thanks, Katrina.
Thank you.
Unless you want to hang out for any of Sam's bylaws, because, but I don't think there's any need for that. So, he's here.
I'll quietly hang.
Okay. All right. Next on the schedule, we've got conservation. There was the change in this one is really, I went back and looked closely at one of the issues, one of the challenges we have in budgeting is Jenny and I are putting in a huge amount of work in like January and early February to put this together, and now here we are late March, and we have to remind ourselves. So I went back to look closely, because obviously the percentage increase looks significant of the salary wages. It's really attributable to that restructure of basically making the land and building services admin costs are now allocated across 3 departments, including planning, conservation, and building. That was it was last June that was actually like fully formally approved. So, and then obviously staffing change. So the proposed budget carries the the actual salary wages of the 2 employees that are paid in full or in part from conservation. That includes obviously our conservation agent, Clay Hutchinson, who's here tonight, as well as Jen Geary, is the land and building services administrator, which is now a full-time position supporting planning, conservation, building, and CPC, community preservation. So this also carries the $7,500, same amount as last year for the land steward, which has been a very successful program. You notice zero spending in that, year to date. That's because that was not run last year. We did get as far last spring as advertising the positions for the land stewards, but it was a few weeks or a month after that the former conservation agent, Michelle Green, accepted a job in the private sector, moved on. So with no one to oversee those summer land stewards, we did not hire them last summer. But the prior 2 years before that had been very successful, and we do have job ads out now for this summer. And we do intend for that to be an annual program going forward.
So where's the 7,500 from last year go?
It'll lapse to free cash.
Okay.
It's on 6/30, so it
Yeah.
depends on when you get, it allows you to start earlier if you can.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The reason to carry the operating budget, the goal would be that they would actually be starting this fiscal year. So part of that would be paid from the current fiscal year, and then anything after July 1st would be paid.
And once we get everything in sync, you'll probably have a little more regular,
Yeah,
so it'll flow smoothly.
yeah.
But they could use some of it this year from
Yeah,
last year's
yeah,
budget, and then- so it
exactly.
could be more than 7,500 theoretically. You could,
Actually,
You're not
you
limiting
could.
to
Actually, you could,
the
yeah.
rest to be a turn back.
Yeah, no, you could. That's true,
Okay.
actually, yeah. Yeah, if it was set, the 7,500 was based on certain assumptions of weeks and hours, but you're right, actually, there's, if someone was interested in doing like more time, we do have funds to support that.
Right, you can do a little catch up this year.
Yeah.
On the land and building administration, you listed, she responds to 4 different departments.
3 departments and the committee, community preservation committee.
So how is that allocated amongst the departments?
It's 30%, 30%, 30% in inspectional services, planning and conservation, and 10% carried in CPC. There is some consideration going on right now to potentially, it won't change in the operating budget. So 90% is in the taxpayer, or it's all taxpayer.
Right.
In the operating budget, 10% from CPC. We're gauging, working with the chair of the CPC and the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. There are some administrative needs for housing, so there may end up being that 10% might be further subdivided between CPC and Affordable Housing Trust, but that won't affect the taxpayer or the general
Right,
budget.
the operating budget.
Yeah.
And I was just curious.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to accept the planning board budget of $92,656. What?
Conservation.
I'm sorry. Oh, wrong line. Conservation, $116,029.
I'll second that,
Thank
but
you.
can I ask a question? So if there is that reapportionment in CPC and housing, how is that actually? How is that decided? How is that, I probably, I won't be on board at that point, but is that?
Just a conversation between Angus and the chair of the committee.
Yeah, I mean, the way it works right now, the CPA admin funds is a fixed amount, it's the 5%.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have any relationship to what's actually anticipated, because you have to allocate the 5%.
Right.
So that number is unchanged, whether that supports 0 staff or the full 5% could go toward administrative staff. Affordable Housing Trust, those funds are fully under the authority of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah.
So if the Affordable Housing Trust voted to authorize, and I'll just pick a number out of thin air, $5,000 for FY26 administrative support.
Okay.
Basically, we would work with the employees, say, are you willing to do this work? And it would be a payroll change in terms of where the money comes
So it
from.
would just come from that account from the Affordable Housing.
Correct, and it would just, there'd be less spent from CPA. Just to be clear, this is really at this preliminary stage. This isn't something that's been fleshed out.
Yeah.
It's just been talked about a little bit, so, and, certainly, I want to make sure we don't end up in like too much on one person, but it seems like, we have someone with a lot of capability, and, so it's not something we would impose, without really working out.
Okay, great, good, thanks, that's good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the conservation budget for $116,029.
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
Rob,
aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dan, aye.
unanimous.
You do each have distinctive eyes.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, moving on. Want to do inspectional services budget first and then the warrant articles? Sound good? All right,
Did Sam nod? I did.
he said no.
He said no, then I'm
He wants to
saying
stay until
whatever
11.
Sam wants, that's what I wait to the end.
Is that the next page, inspectional services?
That's the next one, with staff present, we are gonna, ask you at some point tonight to act on ZBA and, open space, even though it's at zero, it's probably good to
Yeah.
formalize that. ZBA is also proposed at zero.
Okay,
Really, the reason being that the fairly modest budget that's been carried there has been in the event of the need for transcription of meeting minutes. Now that we have a staff person whose responsibilities include meeting minutes for ZBA, there's no need to carry funding for outsourcing that. That goes back again to the land.
But we can continue our discussion about how to set aside some money for these incidental committees that from time to time
Sure.
need, right? So we can take it
Yeah,
up
for like
later.
training and travel.
Yeah, whatever, whatever
it should
else.
just be a line item in your budget for committee.
Yeah, I mean, the fact. that-
Absolutely 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if a committee member came and said they wanted to go to a training, I would exactly,
Exactly,
when it gets into overnights and hotels and things, that's something you need to budget,
Yeah.
But, that hasn't happened so far.
So how would we're getting a little off topic.
yes,
but
we are, very, very off topic, right?
A little off topic.
Yeah.
How would that change happen? Is that something that the finance department would just implement, adding a line item? Like for the next year's budget?
For
Or committee expenses?
travel and training for boards committee, or
committee
not
expenses.
limited. So this is, Jenny's told me it's not as simple as we want it to be because of the Mass DOR.
Reporting to the state,
Okay,
because you have to do it by, governmental category. So,
okay.
yeah.
So we can't have one miscellaneous account that applies to several.
But could you do something where, for instance, there was an understanding that there was money, in a more centralized budget, and then if in fact it was used, like, let's say if midway through the year, the ZBA wanted to do an in-service and it was gonna cost $400, and could you then do a line item transfer, just to basically make sure the accounting on the back end is an accurate reflection of the costs
I mean, we could do that, but it would have to be through.
of income?
Yeah.
So we could do house cleaning at the end where we take out of the account that you're using to dump stuff in.
Yeah,
And then get it to someplace that complies with DOR, but doesn't, the concern I always have is you need to know your real account number, not what all the miscellaneous stuff that went in there. So,
Yeah.
so we would just in July, we would do line item transfers to reset stuff.
yeah, and that way there's an accurate
Yeah,
year-end
yeah.
reporting of
Yeah.
which, so if there were expenses for
Right.
ZBA
Or any of the
Yeah.
zero
Yes.
or minor accounts,
Yeah.
we could handle it that way, because it would accomplish what we want with that always additional step that DOR wants, yeah. So anyways, we didn't go too far astray, right, you're right. We actually reached some level of resolution, which is good. It's the third year we've discussed it.
So we need a motion, right? Let's just do ZBA.
Oh, we started with inspection, jumped, okay, CBA, make a
Sorry.
motion, we fund it for no dollars.
All in favor? Aye.
Dan, motion,
For ZBA, make a motion, we fund it for no dollars.
I second that.
any further discussion, hearing none?
Rob,
Aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross. Uh-oh.
yes,
That's an
One
aye
vote.
for me. You guys see me?
one vote, yeah.
Yeah, that's an aye from us.
He's not on the committee, though.
That's a vote though, right?
I don't know.
Jim,
Hard to top that, but I.
So how are you dressed?
She's wearing an eye patch and a 3-quarter hat.
So, if there was no dollars, were there any cents?
It makes sense to me.
Makes sense.
Dan is I.
All right.
We're good, thank you.
Same thing with open
Yeah,
space?
no, yeah, do you wanna just explain the open space?
Yeah, so Open Space Committee had put in a proposed budget of $1,000 with the intent to support trail markers on multiple town-owned properties, one of which is under the care and custody of the select board, two of which are under the care and custody of the Concom. And we did not carry that forward in my proposed budget for a couple of reasons. For one thing, if you look at the prior, this report here up on the screen shows prior actual, it doesn't show prior budgeted. If it showed prior budgeted, you'd see a number of years where Open Space Committee was funded at $750 a year, and year after year, there's no expenditure. So it's not a large amount of money, but it's just a little turn back that happens every year. So there's not been a demonstrated need for operational expenses. So with regard to potential trail markers, the advice was given that there really needs to be that decision to install trail markers is ultimately the decision of the custodial entity, whether that's the board or the Concom. Those discussions aren't far enough along to have an agreed set of where the trail markers will go, what they will cost, and so forth. So that's at an earlier stage of discussion between the Open Space Committee and those two bodies. But more importantly, I've confirmed with Butch, he has an expense line for streets and signs, for signs, and if there is an agreed plan, we have $1,000 in the operating budget. The money is not the problem. The issue is getting the consensus with the Concom and the select board. So I explained that to the chair of the Open Space Committee and said that not including their proposed budget is not an indication that we don't support trail markers, or that you can't do that. If you have, once it's all worked out, we will find that funding in the public works, which is really where it should come from anyway.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't come from a committee budget, because it's ultimately not their responsibility to put up trail markers.
It'd be like the tree committee getting the tree cutting expense dollars.
Yeah, it wouldn't make.
It's not operational, it's really,
Exactly.
they're an advisory committee, not an expenditure.
Yeah, so I did explain that to the chair, and she was completely understood and completely on board with that, so.
So when you talk trail markers, does that include Mill Pond? Because I've been hearing
No.
about trail markers forever.
It's a separate thing. Mill
Oh, it
Pond
is separate,
sought
okay.
CPA funding to do their trail markers, yeah. We don't wanna go there.
Not tonight.
To Mill Pond?
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
All right,
Make a motion to spend $0 in the open space line item budget.
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
I make a motion to for the open space budget of $0.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
Rob,
aye,
Dennis,
aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
I.
Francesca. No?
Dan is yes.
Yeah, okay.
Francesca.
Wrestling her as we speak.
All right, so now I think that brings us to inspectional services, and we've got our building commissioner.
Yes.
There was some
Yeah, I wasn't aware of your new title.
somewhere in the bylaws, it's building inspector, some other times it's commissioner, but your job description says building commissioner, so.
Very impressive.
call him commissioner.
Not commissioner.
Actually, it's Mr. Commissioner.
Sir.
Okay, the budget, 2% increase, right?
2% bottom line increase, it's it came out to 3% for the salary wages, but 2% overall.
Any questions on this?
Make a motion to approve the inspector's line item budget for the sum of $143,955.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to inspect, or to accept the inspector's budget for $143,955.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
Bob,
aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dan, aye.
thank you.
All right,
You
so
wanna get into the bylaws now?
I think so. I mean, see, we're a little behind schedule. Mike. All right with you. All right. So let's take the floodplain bylaw amendments. I thought we had three. What about the ADU?
Planning board has to vote it on the first.
Oh,
It is in here, but their public hearing is Tuesday, so there was talk of possibly voting it next week, but we did put it in tonight's packet. So it's up to you. I don't think the planning board's gonna change it in their public hearing. But there was talk of having that on April 3rd, just since they had their.
it's not on the select board agenda.
Oh, it's on the FinCom one.
So then we'll find it.
Yeah, yep.
All right.
Hello.
Floodplain first,
Yep.
I can give you a quick overview and
That'd be
then
great.
just answer any questions. So our flood maps are being revised per the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, to reflect the latest maps. And new language has been put forward by that program for us to adopt. Failure to adopt it results in us being dropped from the program. So that part of it's pretty easy. Either we accept their language that they gave us or don't enjoy the program. We have about a little under 50 houses in the floodplain that would be affected if we chose not to adopt it. I don't know why we wouldn't adopt it, but that would be the effect. The one change I did make working with Department of Conservation and Recreation was initially or previously, currently, our bylaw has the special permit granting authority as the planning board. And reviewing the process and what we do, we send them to the planning board. The planning board asks for something not really well defined in our bylaw. And there are a group of people, and no offense to the planning board, that aren't very familiar with floodplain bylaws. I am a floodplains administrator for the town. I've been doing it for years. I dealt with Plum Island, which gave me some really good lessons. In knowing what's required as someone who was a contractor, someone who built in floodplains, enforced in floodplains, inspects in floodplains, I changed the permitting authority from the planning board to the floodplains administrator. In this case, it's myself. Doesn't necessarily have to be the building department in town. Some have separate floodplain administrators. And what it does is gave a very specific detailed list of what's required by the engineer that would normally be involved either way, whether it goes to planning or not, so that I get all the information up front. It's better detailed information. I'm comfortable reading that information, and then we implement it, and then I'm the one that inspects it based on the state building code, which reflects the language through the coastal construction manual, FEMA, NFIP, all these other documents. DCR was very happy with this because what it ends up doing is taking that little bit of cost that you would have spent going through the planning process, puts it towards the engineer to get better documentation up front, eliminates that, potentially lengthy process through planning. Because, and the potential for us needing someone to come in for planning to advise them, do they have the correct documents? I've now got that up front. I get it. So it costs probably about the same, possibly less. Time-wise, it's significantly faster. And you have someone reviewing the documents that's familiar with it. DCR liked it enough that they may next go around use portions of it for model bylaw for the NFIP program. I was trying
Where's
to.
DCR involved? Department of Conservation?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they relate, but our contact and the reviewer for the
the bylaws was someone that worked at DCR.
Yeah, and her title is the floodplain management specialist within the flood hazard management program.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
yeah, she was very happy with it. I thought it made sense, again, for all parties involved. We get better documentation. I can do the enforcement, issue the permits, it goes quicker for the applicant, and we get better compliance. Without, and like I said, no offense to the planning board, and they didn't want it. Quite frankly, I don't think a lot of planning boards would, so it just was kind of a good. Good way to go about it.
Well, I, just speaking as a former member of the planning board, I can tell you that we knew nothing about the floodplain administration. There, so I'm glad that it's not, and then I would think they would welcome not being burdened by it.
They were pretty happy to pass the buck. I do most of it anyway through the building code. Like I said, in probably the past 10 years, a lot of the language from the floodplain regs has made its way into our building code. So it's enforceable by me anyway, but.
Just another question on this, I presume that there would be issues with mortgages for people if we didn't participate in the floodplain.
Yes, so that
We might be stopping people from selling or buying homes.
failure to adopt the current NFIP regulations would result in us being out of the program, which would result in having a potentially uninsurable property for the purpose of getting. So, yeah,
That's fairly
it's
significant.
very significant. I mean, not as significant as some of your coastal communities that have hundreds of homes. We don't have many, but I certainly, if I was the homeowner,
If you're the homeowner,
all it needs to be is
most
mine,
important.
you know, just the one. So,
You said they're currently about 50 in town.
yeah, a little, I think like 48, 49.
Are they all on the Merrimack or are there others?
There's a,
Couple that are off, that are just in some lower lying areas. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
What I've done is in my permitting program flagged all of the addresses. So when literally a flag comes up when you bring the property up, that it says stop, you have to look at the notes, which that reflect that it's in a floodplain, so that way I don't forget. Not that I ever forget anything.
so this is a skill or set of expertise that a building inspector would typically have.
In the past, not so much, moving, like I said, where so much is being incorporated into the building code now, very much so. I was lucky to be ahead of the curve, like lucky, if you wanna call it that, from being in Newbury during the time of all that erosion and the issues going on. So I got a really
You learn
good
stuff
lesson
that no one
fast.
else learned, yeah.
Well, when you retire in 50 years, there'll be somebody else who's capable.
I hope so. It won't be.
Well, but I think that's a serious question as to, in terms of, is you know, with transition, is it something the town can rely on this office, not just Sam Jocelyn?
Yes, and that's,
Yeah.
I think, why, in the past, it was given to planning boards so that they could potentially bring their own engineer in or third-party reviewer to take a look at what was submitted. With the building code having these requirements in it now, we have to be aware of what that requirement is. And then we're also enforcing it, and in each iteration of the code, there's just more and more and more. So, you know, when those inspections need to happen, what happens before you can go out, what documentation you need. That way, if anyone ever comes in and reviews, we can satisfy, you know, the auditors to just show them that, yes, we do what we're supposed to, we have the documents we're supposed to, and we can prove that things are elevated higher and out of harm's way, so that we don't run afoul of the regulations.
Right, any further questions?
Make a motion to accept the floodplain bylaw as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we had previously discussed which of the articles we may or may not take up.
Mhm.
I think I might have mentioned at the time, if I didn't, I apologize, that we reserve the right to, as we heard presentations, make our final decision.
Yeah.
I strongly suggest that we make a recommendation on this one. I think this is of great import, and I would hate to see people on the floor not understand how important this is. So you know, I mean, I think we should probably just, you know, is there a consensus Not a roll call vote, is there a consensus to take this up as a FinCom matter?
I think we should vote.
Dennis?
I'm fine with that.
So, Jim and Ross, we're gonna, take this up as a FinCom matter. First, we need a motion.
I move to accept the floodplain bylaw amendment. As,
Jim will write it the right way, don't worry about it.
thank you.
Second?
We have a second. Is there any further discussion, Ross, Jim, about this article?
No further discussion, ready to vote.
Okay,
I was just,
okay, no, we got one.
a little concerned when you were rattling off all the things that you now controlling. That it would be tough to replace you with that, but you feel like it's.
Not that tough.
Oh, Sam, sell it a little.
Well,
No, a lot of this stuff is, it just ends up being part of the job through the codes we enforce. So
So
even if someone wasn't as familiar, they could get there.
But it's also where it has to resign anyway. It can't go back to the planning board. I mean, it's gonna have,
They could have.
Yeah,
an
that's up to
engineer.
the, yeah,
yeah, but
But you have the resource, in town, and
Right.
just put it in the right spot up front.
exactly,
It's a great.
it's a generational thing. There'll be another Sam, it won't be quite as good, but there'll be another Sam.
Sam 2.0.
So any further discussion?
No.
Roll call,
Ross,
aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
AT,
Jim,
Aye.
Dennis, aye.
who wants to do the rationale? Dan will do the rationale. Thank you very much.
No,
What? No sunset? No
Okay.
sunset.
Next item,
No sunset, no sunset, okay.
large
Just-
battery storage system bylaw.
yes. So currently we have no bylaw in place that regulates large battery storage systems. That leaves us open to someone coming in, and if they hook into our utility and use it as part of the utility for backup power, which is pretty much the whole purpose of these. They get the same protections that cell towers do, any other utility does, and happen as a right to bring it in. Without any regulations in place, it leaves us in a position of, you know, fingers crossed, hoping we can ask the right questions. Before I go forward, I just want to make clear, there's an exemption in here for battery packs of any type of battery up to 100 kilowatt hours that are not regulated by this. That would be the stuff that would be in your house. Most of your household systems, max, I usually see is somewhere around the 30 kilowatt is fairly sizable. We have 100 kilowatt limit here. That would be a heck of a battery pack to have in a house. And there's all sorts of other codes through NFPA building codes that come into place, and it's pretty involved. This is battery packs that come usually now in what most people are familiar with, large storage containers that are craned on site, interconnected into each other, self-contained units, usually sprinkled within the unit or some sort of suppression system in there. They're massive. They're designed to support parts of cities or the entire town or city. I put this through in Groveland last year, and it hit the mark just right for me because the AG's office warned that although it was compliant, it bordered on the edge. If it was used incorrectly, could be viewed to be suppressive. So that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted everything on the table that we could possibly throw at it without it being kicked back. So it gives us the ability to ask for training, to deal with conservation, any type of water runoff or either fire or just rain, capturing that, shielding with vegetation, fencing. I mean, you pretty much name it. We've put it in here that we can consider. And when I say we, planning board would be the permitting authority. But it's a site plan review on steroids kind of deal. So
Pretty much commercial, not.
absolutely commercial. This is like I said, they'd be hooking directly into the grid. Typically, the power line route would be somewhere along there where they'd want to hook into, because most of your street infrastructure probably wouldn't handle it or would need to be significantly upgraded to get the power there.
And who would do this? What kind of, why? I mean,
It's happening all over the
I
place.
mean, would be the electric company itself?
Could be electric company, not really, usually
More
it's private
typically,
entities. Yeah, it's private entities working with the power company, it's similar to anyone that would put in a huge solar field.
And they're just storing the energy through.
Yep, well,
So,
The power
so in
companies are
fact, the current state subsidy program for solar fields for anything larger than 500 kilowatts requires, I'm pretty confident it requires battery storage to be paired with it. If you're gonna take advantage of the incentive, the smart program.
For solar field, I get that.
Right, and there are other reasons to do it. It's for backup power, it's for
Right.
storage of energy, of excess energy, so you don't have to curtail your production if you can't use it all at the time.
And bring it in at
and-
night
and it's
use it
also-
during the day. or
It's also sometimes done, for arbitrage. Basically, you buy cheap,
Yeah.
buy it when the energy is cheap and you sell it when the energy
This is gonna become common. It's actually being done by utilities so that they can cover in storms.
Plus, we're on to buy utilities, that makes it more acceptable. Some company comes in and starts popping these around
Well, I
town.
mean, they're doing it as part of the grid now. The grid's getting more complicated.
Are there any such facilities in this area that you're aware of?
There's some proposed, I know, Havel right now is looking at possibly the largest one in the US, from what I've heard, right by me. Not thrilled, but I refuse to be not in my backyard. They serve a purpose. We're trying to push everyone towards electric usage. The grid can't supply what we need. We see it in the distribution costs. That infrastructure needs to be improved. If it's closer to home, it's easier to get there.
Right.
So these are ways to subsidize that usage. Like Rob was saying, during the summer, when everyone's turning their AC down, except for my wife, those batteries, the grid's producing power, getting in there, and then when we have peak hours, that's a supplemental power source. So places like California, Arizona, a lot of the desert locations seem to be ahead of us with this. Feeding into the, trying to prevent brownouts, those types of situations. So,
And you worked with the fire chief on this?
so with this one, I developed it with our fire department, a fire engineer who happens to be on our fire department, who was one of the authors of NFPA 855, which is the section of the regulations that regulate these batteries. So he was a pretty good one. Someone from our electric light and power company, someone from the public.
Our being broke.
Our being Groveland, yes, sorry, the Groveland Power Electric Light Company, and then also a battery installer themselves as to what we're looking at. And that battery installer had no horse in the race because he was not being entertained to do anything in town. We just wanted to know what their process was and what was involved with it. So we were able to capture a lot of detail in here. That and the usual stealing from others to make a better bylaw. I think we did I'm particularly proud of it because it's something that going into it, I knew absolutely nothing about. Now I know slightly more than nothing.
But our fire department is on board with this.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I think this is great. I think this is, for this point in time, this is a really good thing. Currently, as you mentioned, there are sort of household type systems or, maybe small commercial buildings. And, you referenced 30 kilowatts, they could be, they could be up to 100 kilowatts based on this. The incentive programs that currently exist, there's a mid-range, it really isn't covered. So nobody's gonna put in a commercial system at 100 kilowatt hours. The commercial systems are gonna be more like 5,000 kilowatt hours and way up beyond that. But I believe that there's something in the works in Massachusetts, and I know there is in other states, to address microgrids. That, here we did an evaluation, we had a study, a microgrid feasibility study for this campus, the municipal campus We did that several years ago. And of course, nothing's gone forward on it, but that's going to become a real thing, and it's almost certainly going to become a real thing, and it's going to become relatively commonplace. And when it does, there's a mid-range that's probably bigger than 100 kilowatt hours, you know, and I don't know what that mid-range will be defined as, but this, at some point in time, will probably need to be revised to reflect the mid-range. And
Yeah, as it becomes more common, I would
Right.
think so. Right now, the nice thing is we have the ability to ask for or waive anything that's in there. It's kind of the, the whole kitchen sink's thrown at it, and we can, cherry pick what we'd like to see out of it, so if it's
So
something
would
where
this,
it's a little small.
would this present a problem to someone that was 500 as opposed to 5,000? So, let's wait until we get
Yeah,
there.
no, I was just making the point so that you so it was
Yeah.
generally understood
Yeah,
that,
right.
that this is great for right now, and it covers things really well for right now, but there may be a point in the
There may
future
be.
where we need to look at
Yeah.
a range, between the household
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
size
yeah,
and the big
A
industrial.
lot of that's already somewhat in the works with, we're working on the 11th edition of the building code already, which should be released somewhere towards 2029. So, and NFPA is also looking at this because we know it's coming. Like with most new technology, where we're behind and it takes us forever to catch up. The good thing is they're constantly working on it, so as their codes develop, our zoning can reflect that, which I think will be a good guide for what we need to do. Right now, like I said, we have very little guidance. The codes are very poor on these, both on the fire side and on the building side. So having something in place for those larger systems where we can weigh in and go, okay, wait a minute. We'll we gotta let you put it here, but we want these safeguards. We need fire access. We need training for our fire crew. If this thing goes off, what happens? We need certain types of assurances. You're not gonna contaminate the reservoir, and how are you gonna do that? So, stormwater management is part of it along with our bylaw, but has some additional details in there as well. So we've tried to be, like I said, as all encompassing as possible without being restrictive. So
Is it an estimated footprint for one of these sites?
it can be anywhere from a quarter acre to hundreds of acres. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, if you YouTube, large battery storage systems, you can see there's acres and acres of them. It's great for land where you got nothing else to do, and it's kind of like large solar fields, if you have big open space.
But based on the setbacks, Puerto Rico probably not gonna fly.
No, not here, I'm just saying from, in general,
The
sizes
setbacks.
are
Would be substantial.
range from, see, we could have used the battery.
Oh, what happened?
So, ours don't necessarily range from the quarter acre, but the smaller ones I've looked at. Quarter acre, it's a couple, probably a dozen or so containers. Plug and play and put in it. You'll see more of that like, I won't say Cambridge, but in your more dense communities where instead of having one large one, you might have smaller. Like Rick was, talking about the microgrid type situation where you've got multiple locations feeding into it.
So you could have multiple sites in town.
You could, but again, our infrastructure right now really doesn't
You could have multiple.
lend itself to it. Yeah,
Just.
the reality is where we'd likely see them would be along the power lines. I know, the lot at Major Boyd Drive down and back, he was approached because it's right under the power lines and it's way down and back away from his houses. Couldn't make a deal, it's not gonna happen, but that was sort of what lit a fire under me to get it here after having it in Groveland. The reason we got it in Groveland is our own power company was looking to do one. So they were on we want to do it. So again, I do feel it's pretty balanced because we were working with our own town to allow it, but at the same time, have enough controls on it so that all the other boards, committees.
It's a good sign that the state pushed back a little bit.
But, and that's why I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
That was
that's
the-
good. So Angus has a philosophy about government that you do obviously share, so. The guardrail, you tell your story, but never mind, you won't get it.
Gotta push that limit.
You gotta,
So,
sometimes you have to set the limit and see who reacts.
I was pretty happy that I got, not quite a reprimand, but just a gentle warning.
Yeah, gentle, don't go any.
Walk the
further.
line, but
Yeah.
don't cross it.
But these would be allowed in all zoning districts in town with a special permit, correct?
Correct. Well, is it special permit? Yeah.
It says in there, requires issue of special permit in all zoning districts.
Yes. Currently, there would be no
As of right.
no real process that we have
That's what I was
other than
about to say.
site plan review, so.
Okay.
Yeah, again, going from nothing, or I shouldn't say nothing, very limited, because it would be site disturbance, all the boards would weigh in, but. We have no real good guidance as to what are we looking at and what criteria can we place on this.
Yeah.
Where this gives a very definitive, these are all the things we can look at, and potentially regulate with.
Any
caution.
dangers? Because it talks about explosions and fires and all kinds of things like that.
And again, and that's part of why we wanted to have this in place so that we can have the systems, the engineering all in place, training with fire, input of fire. All that, as part of this process rather than just site plan review or potentially conservation and building. This draws in pretty much every aspect of every board in town to at least weigh in a little bit.
But are these facilities inherently problematic? Is what I guess I'm asking.
They're better. There has been problems, much like with the, any lithium battery, it's. How good the technology is, it's getting better, it's getting less dangerous, there's other technologies that are coming that they're trying to develop that don't rely on the lithium battery. The reason most of them are in containers now and self-contained is you end up with if one cell in a battery heats up, it heats up the ones next to it and the ones next to it, and you have thermal runaway. So by having each one in their own little plug and play container with their own fire suppression system, they can wait it out. There's no depleting it of oxygen, there's no dousing it with water. It's keep it cool until it burns itself out. It's its own supply of heat, oxygen, and energy. So once it gets going.
I think currently what's typically done, and Mike would know more about this probably, but I think if a container takes off, you essentially, its top is gone, its roof is gone. And you cool everything around it, keep any other containers from overheating and let it burn itself out.
With these containers, most of them have self-contained systems that keep it as cool as they can inside. Fire department can douse from the outside. Hopefully contains everything, but again, with this, it's also what chemicals, what water is going in, where's that water going, how are we recapturing it? So that it just doesn't run down the hill to,
So
whoever's here.
this is essentially a case where you have to get something in place, otherwise you have less control over what could occur.
Correct.
And then the question becomes is, if I take Chris's question, do we think about limiting it to certain geographical locations in town?
You do not, because that is prohibited.
That's prohibited, just like.
Unless you have a reason like a drinking water supply.
Because you have something there that the state agrees to, but you can't just arbitrarily say we wanna. We can't tell certain things not to come into the town, we just can tell them how to behave once they come into town.
Right, much like cell towers.
Like
We
cell
had
towers, that's what I was looking for.
Groveland, a good example, we just had a cell tower put in a zone that doesn't allow cell towers because they have no signal. So over.
Are we getting ready on this one?
You guys keep talking.
The setbacks are 50 feet.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so it's not gonna be right next to your house.
Right,
That's all.
right.
Did Groveland Electric put theirs in, or are they doing?
No, it fell through, which is kind of funny, but
So
all
is
this
there-
effort for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it was for nothing, but now we both have, it should have some good
That's
values in
good,
place.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we accept the battery energy storage systems bylaw as submitted.
Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you guys voting?
Yes, we had agreed at a previous meeting that this one we would vote on, it's very important, so unless someone intervenes like Ross or James, I would like to hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the large battery energy storage system bylaw as proposed.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rob,
Aye.
Dennis,
aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Thank you.
Dan is aye.
Unanimous.
Thanks for your work on this, keeping us safe.
Anything with ADUs now or?
What are you thinking? Should we wait until the planning board?
It's probably prudent. I don't know if FinCom's gonna be weighing in on that one, but I think it's probably prudent to wait.
All right.
Who's gonna write the rationale on this one?
Dan, because Dan's actually swapping out. He's volunteering tonight because of the ones I assigned him at the meeting.
When he wasn't
didn't
there.
attend.
In his absence.
And I'm glad they accepted him because his were so easy. I figured I'd get no complaints, but I did. I got complaints, so.
All right, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Dan, Dan, very good, as always.
All right,
So we do still have, it occurred to me, open space rec plan, we've got Clay here, I assume is waiting around for
oh,
that.
I'm sorry.
I know,
Completely.
and,
I'm also just interested in have other work that I.
Okay, all right.
And obviously Chief Dwyer's here, we've got a couple of public safety budgets, and I am hoping we can get through some of the budgetary stuff, because Jenny is
Yeah.
technically on vacation already, can I share your?
Oh, sure.
Well, why don't you share your husband's?
Oh, my husband is officially retired today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, and they're flying out very early tomorrow, so I told her that we try to get through the budget so she could.
Okay. So we'll take the open space, we'll take,
Yeah.
and then,
And then the public safety
Yeah.
budgets, if that
and then
works.
you'll be able to.
Thanks. So the open space and rec plan, as you know, the town meeting had allocated $25,000 at the fall from CPA funding to support updates to the open space and rec plan, which is approved by the state and in effect through the end of the calendar year. We've since learned that turns out CPA funds are not an eligible use for open space and rec plans, even though many towns have done that. So what began as a request for supplemental funding to supplement that prior allocation is now a request for the total costs. We are currently in a procurement process. We've received a couple of bids. I've proposed an amount of $50,000, which would cover each of the bids received. They both came in within a few bucks of that. With a proposed funding source for free cash. Clay is coordinating the working group that is reviewing the proposals, that is comprised of him, 3 members of the Open Space Committee, and 1 member of the Park and Rec Commission.
So I'll just share that there was some pushback about the 50,000 at the Open Space Committee meeting last night. Just that it's obviously higher than is needed, and should we reduce it? That was the question. Given the fact that the last several open space plans have been done in-house for no cost. So just sharing that now.
Yes, yeah, Clay agreed on
Okay.
that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we have bids in,
Well, to be clear, so yeah, let me be clear about that, because so when we put out the thing, we had felt that the 25,000 was going to be really tight, and probably not going to be accurate and or adequate, I should say. And some of that was based on some conversations that were taking place in the fall after town meeting, where basically the scope that we had put in time to write was kind of being expanded by the Open Space Committee, just to be clear. So we had recommended putting in a placeholder for supplemental funds. When we put out the scope for a request for qualifications, we said right in there, we said our approved budget is 25,000. If based on the scope we have set out, you do not feel that's going to be sufficient, we would invite you to suggest what you think our scope will cost.
Right.
So we were overt in saying, like, we were basically inviting the consultants to tell us what you think it will cost, because we kind of knew what was in there was more than 25. They both came in and said, this is what we can do for 25. this is what we think you're gonna need based on what you put in the scope. One came in at, I think, 50,000 even, one came in at like 49,800 or something.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had no knowledge of what one another is doing, so that tells us, the market is telling us is 50,000 is what we put in the scope, so if we have less than that, we will need to rescope it. Which if that's what people want, that's
Well, no,
fine.
I think this is in response to there's a workbook that the scope is based on, which is in the process of changing and becoming less.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other wrinkle.
Yeah, so that's what they were responding
Yeah,
to. If it's
okay.
actually gonna be a smaller scope, then we.
Right, but can't you do that as part of the process? In other words, you can always request 50 and then as you work it, I mean, people misunderstand what the dollar amount is. It's not the amount that you're told to go out and spend. Your obligation is to get your biggest bang for your buck. So if people want to cut back the scope and it costs 35, you've got permission to do that. That's all. So yeah. As always, I trust you guys to work it out as to what's the right thing to do in the end.
Who would cut back the scope? Doesn't sound like it's going in the right direction.
Well, with the chief procurement officer, basically this recent thing, and this is very, very new information. It was as of what, about two and a half weeks ago. Wendy received an email, like, I guess, through back channels, as a friend of Vanessa on Greenbelt. Like, she got an email as a friend of Vanessa. It wasn't through any listserv, it wasn't. And basically, that's how we learned that the state is in the process of updating the workbook, which basically sets out how to do an OSRP. And they said that they intended to finalize this and present it at a conference on March 15th, which was a couple of Saturdays ago. So, you know, Wendy shared that with me. I shared it with Clay and Jen. We met. At that point, we had already received proposals based on the scope that was written, based on the workbook that's been in place for a decade or more. So we reached out to that office at the state on Monday, the 17th, to say, oh, did you finalize and issue this new workbook? As you said, no, they didn't. And Clay and Jen spoke with that office as recently as 2 days ago. And they're still in the process. Oh, it's going to be a couple of weeks. It's going to be a couple of weeks. So we're saying, okay, we have a scope written based on your workbook that we put out in procurement, and we've got bids, and we're not going to sign a contract with a vendor until they come out with the new workbook. So, and what we're hoping to do is get an extension on the date of our current OSRP so that it doesn't expire on December 31st, but that they give us another year or at least 6 months so that we're not in a place where we have to rescope this thing, maybe not have a contract signed till June, who knows, and then have like 6 months to do really what's 12 months of work. So Clay did not get a great sense. She didn't say no, but she was very non-committal in terms of whether they'll consider extending our current OSRP. That is our hope, is to get more time, because we think it's a disservice to the public to try to do this very important work. I mean, by December 31st, it's going to be really tight anyway. And with a new workbook that they still haven't issued, it's just another example of the state kind of making things extremely difficult.
But we have to have something in place in order to proceed. If things don't go your way, we have to have something in place so we can proceed.
Yeah.
We have to have something, even if things do go our way, we need
Yeah.
money.
Yeah,
So,
right, yeah. But what my point is that even though you have these uncertainties, we have to take a leap of faith at a certain level. And I think that it's better to not really quibble about the 50. I would trust that you'll end up working it out if you.
Yeah, it's gonna be significantly less, I would say. based on our-
That's what people have to understand.
And what would be the consequences if you didn't have it done by December 30th?
Well, that's an option.
That's an option. I mean, we would fall out of eligibility for certain
They're
grants.
telling you to run it, they got you holding back too, so it's kind of silly.
It is, it's, you know, I think I would personally prefer to see us fall into non-compliance for a few months rather than unnaturally condensing a process that is an iterative process. And I think it really would be a problem to try to do a 7-year plan that we're gonna live with for 7 years based on this hyper condensed process. So I really hope they'll give us the extension, and we're gonna do it.
So what would be the consequences if we were not compliant?
There'd be certain grants that we would not be eligible to.
Only for that time frame, we're not compliant.
Correct,
Right.
Yeah.
So you got
There are only grants that would
be relevant to open space. and
That's right, but
recreation.
as recently as last year, you know, we got the land grant for
Right.
340,000, something like that, and we do have our eye on this trails grant for next cycle, for next spring. So if we were in non-compliant, you know, we don't want to be in non-compliance. What we want is the state to be reasonable and say they're rewriting their rules. We want to be on the cutting edge of this new workbook, not on the tail end of this old
But
workbook.
the point is, we gotta set something in motion. This is the
Yes.
article that sets it in motion.
That's right.
All the other stuff, we'll deal with.
That's just the
Yeah,
day-to-day
that's
stuff.
just
that we do,
day-to-day
yeah.
stuff. It's all interesting, but it takes up a lot of time.
That's the
You
number.
said you thought it was coming in significantly less. I mean, I think town meeting might have a little resistance to the number.
They can always go down. You know, you can't go, once it's in the warrant, you can't go above that, but they could go down if
I
that's the
think by
wisdom.
town meeting, we'll have an idea of what the, or closer, don't you? And so
Yeah,
we could just
yeah.
make it, a, you know,
Yeah.
a motion.
So,
or
so
less.
make the motion for less. that's all.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we approve the funding for open space and recreation plan costs of $50,000.
You second that, please?
I haven't.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So,
I make a motion to accept the proposed open space rec plan amount $50,000.
Second?
so is there any further discussion? Ross, Jim, hearing none, roll call,
Rob,
aye?
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
thank you,
is aye, so fine.
unanimous.
All right, sorry that was more involved than.
Rationale, I mean, rationale at sunset date.
No, you get used to it, really, good training. That wasn't even really difficult.
Rationale?
So
Sunset?
who's gonna do the rationale? I'll do the rationale. What's the sunset date on this that you wanted? 26?
I think we put
26?
26.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's go to 27, because if they give us the year extension that we
Exactly,
want,
right,
yeah,
exactly,
that would be great.
27 is the sunset, thank you. Great.
All right,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Clay.
Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
All right, Mike, you're up.
Oh, great.
Let's start with police or budget,
Yeah, let's start with budget.
but which one?
Which one comes first?
Pick your poison.
Police. Police comes first.
Police goes first. So, hopefully saw in the packet there was a proposed increase in, the expense line since what was initially presented on February 13th. The salary, wage and OP is as proposed then. The expenses results from, I think some good work that the chief's done with, myself and Jenny and with his staff on just making sure that we're, carrying, proper resources, including for, training and onboarding, including the academy, some of the screenings and, so that's what, but there's more detail, so.
So I had a question on the PR firm. Do you feel like that's a value? I mean, that's $5,000 is a significant expense.
It really is because we're so, even like today, we were from sun up to sundown busy. And that does give us a really good resource when things get really difficult for us. Because we're still dealing with whatever the crisis is. They provide a lot of support to us, either getting media relations in order. When we had issues at the school, they were taking care of all of that, so we could focus on the problem with the school, with the other incidents. So for the amount of money, it's a big benefit to me, because it's usually happening after hours. It's happening middle of the night.
I like it because it's sort of a buffer between you and not to disrespect, when I was on school committee, we hired the same firm at the time. They have an unbiased and a very cool approach.
Yeah.
when you get in the middle of something, you get done with the event and you gotta go write a press release, it takes a different bite than when they do it, so. I know it's a lot of money for, seems like a little bit of work, but I think it's a good value added.
And I wish we could utilize it more. We just can't. There's not enough free time for us to do that at this point. For crisis management, it's important.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget, please?
Yeah, heck with the overtime wages.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're gonna be asked that a lot.
yeah, sure. So, we are running into, I think it was mentioned before that the state is setting, rules and regulations for the police, to follow. That's really hurting the small communities. In the memo that I passed around that I submitted to Angus, we're really stuck because of our reserve officers. For 30+ years, we were using them to fill all sorts of voids, whether it was vacation time, sick time. Some of them would actually not even have any employment, and they would work close to 40 hours a week for us as reserves. It worked great. We completely ignored the fact that that could change. With police reform, now we can't build up that force anymore. We can't build up our part-time staff, which we refer to as reserves, because the state has eliminated that. So now a town like West Newbury that has 10 full-time officers, you know, when there's one change, one officer either retires, transfers, or is out because they have maxed out vacation through the year. We have to then fill that with overtime. So that's why we're seeing such a large increase in those costs.
I would point out that between the salaries and the overtime, you gotta look at both. We're down 43 and salaries, we're up 62. There's an interplay between salaries and overtime. A lot of companies will actually look at it together as an expense, and then you have to manage it to that. But I'm glad to see a 3% increase, given the struggles that police departments are having in the Commonwealth. Because of the changes that probably had to be done, but it certainly didn't have a lot of funding behind it.
And I wish that money could go to really value-driven, value-based training. Right now, we're just putting Band-Aids on shifts, and my staff, they're tired. I'll be working this weekend to help give some people some time off, because I have ultimate flexibility. But everybody is just giving it their all, and they're not really getting the chance to do a 5-day training to advance their skills, because we have a wide variety of people that have a wide variety of skills. That's where I want us to get to. But right now, we're just trying to play catch up with this big, pretty drastic change.
Again, if you were to add the two together, the net change in total is probably under 2%.
Why are salaries down?
So looking at reserves, looking at where we have our regular staffing, that's where we're seeing that change.
Sometimes you're better off doing the overtime than having the additional full-time head. So
we're talking about, I'm working with all the members to talk about, are there ways that we can restructure the schedule? Is it something that we want to look into possibly adding another number to our roster with 11 full-timers? We're having those active discussions, but we all agree right now, we just want to make sure we can get through the next couple of years and see what stabilizes.
So if you look at this like from a staffing standpoint, just the hours worked, you're probably in line with previous years, right? It's just the shift from how much overtime you're paying as opposed to a regular time, right?
Right, and it took us a good year and a half to see not only the impact of the regulation changes, but what we actually needed to keep up with our workflow.
the reserves were cheaper, right?
Yes.
So this pressure on the wages, because the amount of hours you now do with part-time or reserves is much lower than military.
Yeah, and a lot of the reserves that we currently have, that they're not interested in full-time, where historically that was kind of the reserve. of staff that we could really, we could train, we could vet them, and then they were ready to go when the next available position came up for grab. But now, my complete reserve here, they all have full-time jobs, families. They really don't have a lot of flexibility where we used to target individuals who just got out of college. They were willing to work many hours.
Now, the school resource officer, does the amount that the school district pays us, does that go against the police budget, or is that just?
No, it doesn't. No, they did that a number of years ago with a former, like, when I started, but that's not correct. And you may remember the very first budget year, it appeared on paper that the SRO was going up by order of magnitude 32K. It wasn't. But the correct way to do this, and Jenny can attest to this, you have to budget for the full expense.
Right.
And then the revenue is received to a revenue line. When I started, they were receiving the revenue to the expense line to basically underreport the expense. That is not the correct way to do it. So we made that adjustment my first budget year. And I remember that year, it was kind of a dust up because everyone thought the cost is going up. It's like, no, the cost has not gone up. So anyway, that's embedded, the SRO full expense is embedded in the expense budget. Then when we work with DOR to set the tax rate in our projected revenues, we book it as miscellaneous recurring revenue. And we have to provide to DOR documentation of why we know we're getting that revenue. And so we send them the school budget, we highlight this amount, and then they allow us to. So that does reduce what you pay for taxes.
Right, it
Just
reduces
not-
But it's
the
not
amount we have
something
to
that
raise.
shows up in the operating budget.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks. Any other questions? No, please, budget.
Make a motion to accept the police budget line item for $1,335,751.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion,
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the total police budget for $1,335,751.
Second.
any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call,
Rob,
aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross.
Ross, Ross.
Aye.
Aye. Jim,
Aye.
and Dan is aye.
Thank you very much.
Is that our largest department budget?
Yes,
No, DPW.
I
I'm just
think
looking for DPW.
it's
It's gonna be 1.6, I think, on DPW.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, DPW is one.
All right. Dispatch?
Dispatch is
No,
not
no,
till
no.
next week.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Oh, sorry.
fire.
Yeah.
Don't yell that out.
But I'm sorry.
Everybody leave the building.
We're okay, Ross, Jim, we're okay.
Right, what's noteworthy here? Looks like wages, 19%. No, sorry.
No,
Still on dispatch.
Nothing's noteworthy,
No. All
which
right,
is remarkable.
I guess you look for motion to approve the fire, line item $337,697.
sorry. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I'll make a motion to accept the total fire budget of $337,697.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
Rob,
aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Dan is aye.
And then just EMA is the last section of the budget. And Jenny, if you wanna, I don't think there's gonna be drama on that. If you wanna, I know you have an early flight.
Questions here?
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency management budget for the sum of $12,794.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the emergency management budget for $12,794.
Second.
any further discussion? Hearing none,
Rob,
aye,
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dan is aye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you very much,
Great.
Jenny. Have a nice trip.
Have a nice trip. Send us postcards.
We do have an article, right?
We do, yeah, we've got the Lucas device and we have the fire study.
You want me to talk about that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chief, we gotta get through this stuff, man.
I agree.
You wanna come back next week?
I think I have to for this one.
We have the Lucas devices first.
So the Lucas device, this is something that my fire officers came to me about. Time is of the essence when somebody is experiencing sudden cardiac arrest. This is a device that actually will aid our staff to provide high quality CPR for a person in need of that. It also helps with safety we're oftentimes bringing somebody out of a home, bringing them to the ambulance. This is a device that actually fits around them and it provides precise, high quality support. So again, this is something we looked at. I was just talking, we had training last night about a different type of skill. And we were just talking about how over the years, so many things have changed with technology that I'm proud that my staff wants to utilize. So this is the device that we're looking to purchase. We would be trained by the company as to how it's used, and it would require, minimal maintenance and upkeep.
So will you require specific training to this device in addition to CPR training every 2 years?
Yes, yeah, this would be, in addition, this would be similar to like an AED.
Okay.
Or just
You don't get a stipend for it, do they?
fire department, no, they don't get many benefits. They really should.
So will this device be available to the police department or will they be trained on it as
No,
well?
this would be for the fire department, yeah.
So is this device that like goes around them and it presses the chest?
Yes.
And it's basically run with battery, right?
Exactly, in the form of
Expensive
CPR.
battery.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the life cycle for this device?
So we're looking right now, I've talked to a lot of agencies around us that are using 8 to 10 years. But we're thinking that we'll be able to, I don't want to say push that a little bit further, but I think we're gonna be more on the 10-year.
You just don't wanna be the person that it.
Yeah, find out.
The first person that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Battery's dead, sorry, buddy.
This must have an indicator light like an AED, right?
The check engine, light,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind to look at it, because it's a funny little thing, it's got like a band that goes on, it comes over and there's like a piston in the middle, in the front.
Yes, yeah, it's very, it's
Do you
intense,
think?
very intense.
And yeah, the batteries are ridiculously
Yeah,
expensive.
when I saw a move benefit, I was looking at Chris's name in there, but.
How long have they been around?
Don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been in the field, I would say, at least 10 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought 2-3 weeks ago, I saw something, was it Merrimack that was gifted one? Salisbury,
yeah.
or gifted one, yeah.
Yeah, I was also gonna ask, not right now for this one, but isn't this the type of thing that eventually you can find a grant for if you wanted to get an additional one? or-
We possibly could, yeah.
Cause I'm thinking that, would you ultimately wanna have one in cruiser at night? No?
We would have to see, we'll have to look into that once we have it in.
Cause you know, like, a lot of times they're first on scene,
Correct.
they were at my house anyways. I don't know how they did at Chris's house, but my house did very well.
All right, any further discussion on the topic?
I'm making.
That was related.
I don't know, Rob, we'll have to. I'll make a motion to approve Article 35 for the fire department to purchase Lucas device for the sum of $20,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion for the fire department to purchase the Lucas device for a sum of $20,000.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
Rob,
aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Thank you.
Dan is aye.
So, we've got a sunset date of, 2026, June 30th, always. The rationale will be done by the person who asked the most questions, or, oh, Dan, you were, okay, yes.
I thought the person had the most need for it, that'd be you.
Yeah, it would be me.
I'll write it for you.
Okay, thank you, I am taking back the rest of yours, so thank you.
What's delivery?
Is that,
What's the delivery?
from what I understand, it's pretty good.
All right, the next item is the fire study. What article is that?
36, I believe.
Yeah. So, the board and I have discussed this for quite some time. Right now, the members of the board and I agree that times are changing. We have a great group of call firefighters that work for the town that are doing amazing work all hours of the day and night. But what we agree with is it's gonna be important for us to look at what a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road is gonna look like for West Newbury and its fire department. What we're seeing is at times our response times are a lot longer than they should be. And staffing, there's been days where, for instance, this morning, the police chief was the fire chief, was the EMT on a call because a lot of things were going on. So we're looking at this to really start, I wouldn't say crawl, but we want to start to sort of walk in a pretty brisk direction to see what we can have for information to look at staffing models, look at our fleet, look at our stations, look at everything that goes into our fire operation to see how we can improve that, what's reasonable. For instance, we have a lot of administrative now. Sam was just talking about all these energy storage systems. Those are things that are going to occupy a lot of time. So we really want to look at what our options are moving forward, just to give the community the best response. For instance, with a medical call, it could take 4 or 5 minutes for us to get to a scene. It could take us 11 or 12 minutes to get to a scene. We're just talking about cardiac arrest. That's, you know, we're at the point now where we're rolling the dice on staffing. So what we thought would be the best steps to take is look at different consultants that would be interested in our scope, which the board, myself, and Angus's department would work on together and see what would be the best firm or consultant to move forward with this project. To come back to the board to give us some information and then have some information to provide for the other boards and committees in the town.
Yeah,
Yes, you may.
2 questions. One is, will the flow rates be part of this? Because certainly, no.
I don't think so. I think our priority right now is what we have for equipment.
Right.
Because we want to be able to look at our capital
Okay,
capital plan.
so it's not a comprehensive plan, it's more focused, which is fine,
Yeah,
that's not right. Second,
We did talk.
yeah, so
You're talking the water, like firefighters, isn't that the hydraulic study that was just done?
well, yeah, but. Right, but I would love to see something, comments back
On that.
which things we might best attend to.
Got it.
But
Okay.
I don't wanna change your scope, but a comprehensive plan would certainly go.
We'll talk about the design of the community as it
Yeah,
applies to
yeah.
firefighting, which would be the hydrants and in some cases like there are.
The second thing is, would there be anything in there that speaks to the ISO rating and what might be done to improve whatever rating we happen to have?
I think that's gonna be an
Well,
important.
that would be great if it was in there, because I think people gotta understand what the elements are that can progress a fire department from, say, a 5 to a 4. You know, 4 to a 3. We'll never reach 1, but, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you. Okay, great.
So are there, I mean, I know other fire departments have done similar studies. Are there kind of like template scopes to use for this? Is it kind of an off the shelf thing or is it very specific?
There are, and we have, you know, a lot of my fire officers are so knowledgeable because they work in our communities. We have a good pool of current former fire chiefs, deputy fire chiefs, and then sort of the word of mouth. Well, so we intend to have a lot of people working on that part of the study to make sure that it's what's right for West Newbury moving forward.
I would also, I mean, you mentioned Angus would be part of it. I think it's important to either have Angus or somebody from the select board as part of this group, just to kind of, because you're just
Agreed.
focused on the fire department, it'd be good to have just that additional input.
Yeah, like I said, the board, we all understand, we all are affected right now by the ups and downs of staffing, even on the fire department. So we wanna, I think with all the current members on the board and the members of the fire department, they wanna see us move forward in a positive direction. And I don't, you know, I will always be very selfish to this community. I don't want it to be something bigger than it needs to be. I don't want it to be what's right. Just sort of help us get to the next step, whatever that step is.
I have the same kind of concern. My question will be a little more pointed is, who will be involved with the study on the working group? Right, because given the money, who knows where it goes? That's what, you know,
Yeah.
probably you, probably Angus.
Yeah,
And then it was,
yeah, and we can, and I'll certainly have the group of people that I feel are gonna be.
You would have the whole board of fire engineers, I assume, right, or no?
Or selected people
Probably
based upon
selected,
that, based
we don't
upon
want
that.
to run it at the same time, but we'll get some feedback.
So maybe are you thinking a working group, like, which is what we do on other?
yeah, because otherwise you have a committee gonna have to start posting
Right.
meetings. That's what we're gonna get at next.
Right. Would you entertain having somebody from the select board in that working group? I think it would be beneficial.
I agree,
Yeah.
yeah, I would have no problem.
I think it sounds great. I think it's overdue.
Yeah,
Try to get it.
we're excited.
Yeah. All right, any further discussion?
No, I appreciate it, because you scared us a while ago when we talked about staffing. It's like, what is he talking about? That's probably 4 or 5 months ago, and we didn't even know where it was going, so now we have the opportunity to get some direction, which would be helpful.
Yeah.
I'll
And
make a motion.
actually, it's funny because Chief Wire had first reached out to me on this back in like late 2019, and then of course COVID came along, but it was actually that was really where the discussion started with initiatives that he had actually was one of his firefighters that had come forward with that, so.
Make a motion to support Article 36 with a sum of $25,000 to fund a fire department study.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to support Article 36 for a study of the West Newbury Fire Department survey for $25,000.
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none.
Rob,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dan is aye.
Aye, and we have a sunset date, right? We're comfortable with the sunset date? Right, Mike?
Says June 30th to 27 in the article.
Yeah, so that's good. I would think that's adequate, and then who would like to do the rationale? You know, it's interesting, it's like the three of us are sitting here volunteering for all of the rationales. We have 2 members sitting there very strangely quiet.
Yeah, but Ross is putting your booklet together, right?
Ross just texted me, that was someone else, what?
Isn't Ross put the booklet together?
Well, he does some, too.
Yeah,
He's
so-
he's multitasking, so
And
which of the 3 of us want to do it to end this conversation? Dan, thank you very much.
Dan the man.
Dan the man.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, we're good, thanks.
Yeah, it isn't right for me to ask Jim for his own vacation, but he could volunteer.
Thank you, Rob. I'll consider that next time.
Thank you. Sayonara, huh?
All right, where are we?
So we have 3 more.
All right, let's take the right to farm since we have,
Right, everybody's here?
Yeah.
So let's do that.
so, FinCom, are you all up to date on the right to farm thing? Do you need an overview or?
We definitely need an overview. We don't know.
Okay, just asking.
No,
It's in the
we've
packet.
seen documentation, but that's not, basically.
I confuse you more, right?
Yeah, right.
All right.
Exactly. Documentation isn't as eloquent as you can be. Thank you.
So the origin of this is right to farm laws, they're state laws, and they are designed to protect commercial farmers from people making nuisance lawsuits. It came about in the 70s when a lot of people from urban areas started moving into farming areas and complained about the noise and the smell and all of that. So I think all states have right to farm laws right now, which protect commercial farmers. A lot of municipalities also have bylaws which explain how the municipality will implement the state right to farm laws. If you see in the examples in the packet, that could be having a disclosure notification so that when you buy property in town, you get just a paragraph saying this is a right to farm community. You may have, farming activities going on. They also sometimes appoint an agricultural commission to promote farming, potentially resolve disputes, if people are complaining about a farm near them. So, we have a group in West Newbury, an ad hoc group, but they've been working about 1.5 years to develop a right to farm bylaw for West Newbury. They feel that rather than only apply these rights to commercial farms, they should apply to anybody conducting farming activities in West Newbury. And so there's a basic split between what they are proposing and what the select board and most of the comments we received on these bylaws are in favor of, which is limiting it to commercial. So that's why we have 2 bylaws in this package that are going to be in front of town meeting. The citizens group brought forward a citizens petition, which can't be changed until you get to town meeting. So the select board felt that we needed more options, and so we proposed our own version of the bylaw, which is here. That's essentially the difference. Ours is limited to commercial and the right to farm extends to all farming activities. So we were hoping that we would end up with one bylaw. We've been working diligently to try to get a consensus bylaw and we're just not there. We're one word away from that potentially, but because the citizens petition has members who aren't on this ad hoc group, they would have to withdraw their names from the citizens petition in order to not have it be on the town warrant, and that might prove difficult is what I'm hearing. So that's kind of where we're at. Looks like we'll have 2 bylaws on the warrant, which will be confusing, but I think we can get past it. So does that kind of explain where we're at, or do you have questions?
How many names are on the citizens petition?
You're only required, I think 15, it's in the packet.
10 is the requirement.
They have 13.
There's
13 or
13 on
something.
there. Yeah.
So you have to have all 13 of those
Withdrawn.
removed or
Yeah.
withdrawn to.
Yeah.
And it's known that some of the people will not be willing to withdraw.
I don't know.
How's that gonna play out?
So the difference really is the all versus the commercial, right?
Well, I think when somebody will have to do a presentation at the beginning saying you have 2 choices. You want commercial and you want commercial. It's real simple. I don't think it has to be contentious.
No, you want commercials in both,
No,
Yes, the state already protects commercial farming.
right?
So, I mean,
exclusive commercial.
yeah, I would say that absent the citizens group, that the select board would not be bringing a bylaw forward. I mean, I personally don't feel like we need a bylaw. I mean, other than appointing an agricultural committee, I
Right.
see value in that.
Or disclosure, there's value in
Yeah,
there's value in the disclosure.
Perhaps.
There,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
but just to, to address concerns that we've heard from other residents about, their rights not being as important as their neighbors who happen to want to have farming, we feel like we need to at least give people an option. So,
But farming can exist,
of course.
right?
Yeah.
In fact, in zoning, there's very few prohibitions as it relates to farming. Isn't that true? There might be one
Well, there are prohibitions,
against,
but the zoning is commercial farming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, so
Yeah.
as it relates to zoning, you're not precluded, for instance, from having farm animals.
No,
it's
the
the
whole point of
protections.
this is, to just avoid nuisance lawsuits. So, I mean,
Yeah,
the
right.
other thing is we currently have a system in place where any complaints about anything related to farming, commercial or not, they call the Board of Health, the
Board of
health agent goes out, talks to him. He said he gets 1, maybe 2 calls a year, which he resolves the same day. Bob James told me there's been 1 instance in the last 20 years that the Board of Health had to even get involved. So we have a system that's working.
Right.
So I guess what we should do is vote on the select board version, which is up here, and then we'll have the citizens petition group present theirs, and then you can vote on theirs. I think that we have to assume both will be on the warrant. Perhaps they won't, but that's how it is right now.
Can I ask one question? When we had spoke, you had mentioned that you felt comfortable taking out and West Newbury zoning bylaws, since that applied under the federal, state, or local laws and regulations, do you still feel that that can be edited out?
I'm comfortable, I would leave it up to my,
Why would you edit it out?
Where is that?
Because it's already covered in the first sentence of that paragraph.
Can you
Nothing
scroll
in
up
this
to
right
third
upon
paragraph?
bylaw shall be deemed to authorize any activity
Yeah,
that is otherwise subject to regulation or control under any federal, state, or local law, regulation, or guideline. And the West Newbury zoning bylaws fall under that first
as
sentence.
do the Wetlands Protection Act, which we called out specifically
Yeah.
because they have this particular,
And I think it's pointing out specifically, look at your bylaws, yeah. I don't
I'm
see
not,
this problem, at least.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's actually good to reiterate stuff. I mean, does that interfere in anything?
No, that was just a question.
No, okay, so, okay. I oftentimes will make sure that I've said certain things 2 or 3 times in the contract. No, when I do contract.
I'm saying it 3 or 4 times in the same meeting sometimes, really.
Fire, huh?
So let's, I think, yeah, Catherine sent a memo to Wendy. And there were the 3 issues, the zoning, the land ownership, and shall versus may.
Right, so Wendy and I also spoke about land ownership, and we had a discussion about whether people who rented in town were able to be on boards and committees and such, and Wendy assured me that they could, so then I was like, well, then we would follow suit, obviously. But we were under the impression that you had to be like a land ownership resident in town.
No, I don't think so. I suspect the AG would throw that out if you put it in too. Be a guess.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with it. After having a discussion with Wendy, it seemed perfectly reasonable. If that's what the town is already doing, then there'd be no reason to do anything different.
So, but I just want to, you are not agreeing to our version, right? You're continuing with the citizens petition, so I'm not sure we want to debate these points, right?
Well, you're 2 out of 3, let's nail the last one.
That one I think is gonna be tough because I feel really, so the issue here is, can you scroll to section 6?
I'll preemptively say that we have carefully reviewed your bylaw, and we've had further discussion about it since I spoke with you.
Mhm.
And we do feel that it meets the needs of the residents. In that, for the most part, with the exception of that word may or shall, we're in total agreement with the document.
Mhm.
And we feel that it's really just not worth the effort to do anything than to just go along with the way it is. It meets the needs of the residents.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the way that it's written?
Yes.
Okay.
And so what does that mean in terms of the citizens petition?
I believe the consensus is that we will leave the citizens petition on the warrant, but it will be withdrawn on the floor.
Is there any reason it couldn't be withdrawn beforehand? I mean, that
I
incurs
think
legal
we're waiting
expense.
to make sure that the town council doesn't have any substantive changes to your version.
So if we turn that around, what do you think it would take to get that reviewed? And when does the warrant get posted?
Warrant gets posted Monday the 14th, which that's a holiday, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so, but it's typically that, it's typically, in practice, you sign it typically the Friday before, so Friday the 11th.
No, it'd be the.
Oh,
it's a week after?
It's the
Okay,
third,
it's
third
often,
Monday.
Right, right,
yeah, so yeah, typically Friday the 11th.
And is it reasonable for us to get town council review?
I think so, I mean, you've already had some, substantive dialogue, he hasn't, not on the,
I mean, this is what I sent him, but he didn't comment on that.
Yeah.
Based on my question.
so, yeah, I think he could turn that around. Probably for next, Thursday, I think,
Especially if you ask nice, real nice,
yeah.
real nice.
You never
know what you're gonna, may I make a comment?
Sure.
Oh, Barry. No, I can't?
Yes.
No, yes, the question.
If you could go to the beginning of it, was not involved with the ad hoc committee, I'm not a member, but I'm always interested in good bylaws. And I've spoken with the group. In the second paragraph where it says that we have the operation of commercial farms, these farms, capital F, which in the definitions are the commercial farms. along with other agricultural endeavors. To my view, that clause covers the non-commercial residential accessory farming or agriculture, chicken coops, horses. Things that the ad hoc committee may have been focused on. So I think that and the notice that's in there is generic. It doesn't say farms with a capital F. And in the dispute resolution section, if you could scroll to that. Talks about that highlight, the red line. So if any person leaves out of a farm, being the commercial farms or other agricultural endeavors. So there would also be the dispute resolution provision would allow the Board of Health to.
Which it already does, but.
But this says they can and do and then, so that's why I believe this accommodates the objectives that I heard from the group. I'm not a member. If the town council does not push any of those out, I think you heard the group say they wouldn't move theirs on the floor, but I can see why they want to wait and see if town council signs off on this draft.
Yeah, right,
Right.
that's totally reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I am concerned, I would prefer to not have it withdrawn on town meeting floor. If it's gonna be withdrawn, I want it to
Right.
be
Yeah,
before.
but I can see why they would want to wait. till town
Absolutely, so we
council-
just, we just discussed that, so I think the
We're all in
timeline.
violent agreement.
Yeah.
But isn't it also true that select board would have the option of changing anything within that bylaw until right before the meeting, the town meeting?
Once it's posted, once the warrant is posted, it can't be changed.
Okay, and that date would be.
I think we said April 11th or
Yeah.
14th.
Legally, it's 14 days ahead, so legally it's the 14th. Typically, in practice, it's signed it the Friday. Yeah, the 11th, but on or before the 14th.
Again, I don't think we're
No
looking,
substantial change.
It can't be changed at all.
Okay.
Once it's posted until the town meeting floor, it
Okay.
can't be.
and I don't think we'd be looking to change anything, except if legal came back and said you've got an egregious error.
Right, so, yeah, Lisa, I mean, if town council says this is good, we're not.
Well, I think she's
Yeah.
referring to the fact that we removed the bylaw in the fall.
Yeah.
And that was a real blow and they felt betrayed by the select board. And,
Okay.
I've explained it wasn't our intent, but I
Right.
appreciate that
Right.
you would have
Right.
skepticism, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's the may and the shall issue? Is that in the, whether to consult with the committee?
Yes,
Yeah, and what does it read now, shall or may?
May.
Yeah, I think that's right, because shall's kind of hard. Anytime a law says
Yeah,
shall,
shall,
it's
you have
Well,
no,
my concern with that is we don't want committee members interfering with an employee doing their job, so
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
so we actually are now in agreement.
it appears to be. So Catherine, are you looking for us to vote on the citizen petition or are you just assuming that will?
Well, I'm expecting even if you voted on it, it would be a no all around, so I think it's inconsequential, quite frankly.
Okay.
The only thing that we request is we did do a red line version of the citizens petition so that it's very clear. If it does end up on the floor for whatever reason, it's very clearly delineates between what is a commercial farm and what is a residential use for agricultural purposes. So I'm just requesting that if it does go in the FinCom booklet, are we allowed to put in our red line version so that people can follow along the changes that are gonna be made on the floor?
The thing is, you may or may not make them. I mean,
No, but I'm putting it out there that if town
Right.
council shoots you down for some reason, that I'm just requesting that our red line version goes in the booklet so that people can.
A red line version
You know, what you-
of the
This
citizen
is the
petition.
petition.
Yeah, you, by red line, you mean your version, your
Yes.
final version.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Red, black, doesn't matter.
yeah.
I don't know.
No, right,
Is that legal?
The citizen petition that's gonna go in the booklet is the citizen
Yeah.
petition.
Yeah, it has to be.
that's what you would vote.
We can't change a comma.
No. You're talking about your document. You want your document there so that if things didn't turn out the way we're talking tonight, people can see what it is you were
Right.
asking for.
So I could say.
Not the.
No,
She's suggesting, she's asking if you can put a red line version of the petition version.
With the
Yeah, right,
changes.
we're saying the same thing.
No, you're
Angus
not.
is saying
I
no.
know that, I already told Angus that's not what we're talking about, we're talking about what she's requesting, right?
But he understood her question.
Huh?
He understood.
Yeah,
Right.
The petition?
Yes.
It's not that, she wants, they plan to make changes on town meeting floor to the bylaw.
Right,
To their.
yes,
But that's if it's not.
right,
And
I
she was
understand that,
asking, she was asking Rob if she could put a red line version in the booklet.
yes, the FinCom booklet.
Yes.
Angus went to the actual petition, I'm saying it's not the actual.
no,
petition.
that's not what I was saying.
Okay, well, that's what you were showing on the screen, so, yes, you can,
Okay,
we will,
thank you.
okay?
Wait,
All right.
wait, no,
No,
Hold on.
that's,
So you have to put the original version in the. If the FinCom agrees, they can say this is the language that is going to be presented at.
As like
Right.
an appendix.
Correct, that's what we're
Right,
asking,
yes,
that's what we're asking.
These are proposed
so
amendments.
then we'd have 3 versions of the
Yeah,
bylaw in the
that's,
FinCom booklet.
I would really not recommend.
Yeah.
well, we'll talk about it, she's asking the question, we'll talk about it,
All right, let's hope we don't get that.
we're gonna talk about it.
Okay.
We thought it was confusing before, until that happens.
There's other mechanisms of making sure people can see what it is. I understand what,
Casey would have a fit.
Some people are visual, so I'm just thinking for the people who are not auditory and they're visual, even if I handed a
absolutely.
piece of paper as they walked in and checked in.
That would be better, I think.
Well, that's what I was getting at,
Yeah.
that there's a way to make sure that people can be sitting there. If what it comes to is yours still goes to the floor, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay, however we do it, may not be in the booklet, because, but whatever, it should be made available so people can then focus on that, if the thing they have to do is focus on that, that's the question, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
All right, so,
Barry,
I'm just thinking my.
yeah, I know you're shaking your head.
all right, let's,
know if you go in the book. I agree.
Well, I'm not gonna go in the book.
But we just had a conversation that took. us
all right,
away from
folks,
that,
let's move
okay?
on. So then the plan is to take that version and send it to town council. I'll do that tomorrow. And
I guess I'll have an answer by Friday.
tomorrow is Friday.
No, I didn't say which one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we want to vote on it tonight, or we want to vote on, we do want to vote on
Yes,
it
and
before it goes to town council, so
Yeah.
I move that we approve. The version that's currently in the packet, to,
Well, there's 2 in the packet.
okay, the select board version that's in the packet, for inclusion.
Yeah, so discussion, I would be happy if this all works out, giving this to the ad hoc committee it doesn't have to be the select board version. I think you've worked really hard on this. If this is something important to you, I'm happy letting them.
I would
Present it.
prefer to not even have a select board version, if they could modify theirs to be the select board version, just eliminate theirs, if that's possible.
Well, they
You'd
can't-
actually done that, but you shot it down.
That would have
We're
been,
revisiting it for you.
Yeah, so
well,
we can work the logistics of that out. Are you shaking your head? You don't think? that-
Well, no, it's just, I mean, once the petition is filed, we have to, the people who sign that are entitled
Yeah,
to
yeah,
see that on the floor of town meeting.
Unless there's.
So
Unless all of them.
Correct,
right.
but they can't resubmit a new
No, that's
petition.
not what I'm
that's
saying.
not
I'm
the-
just
No, I-
saying, we want to do a public information.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like let's.
that'd be
let
great.
them
But
know.
you're actually extending it to the point of the motion, it could be made by, so,
Yeah,
Barry, no, Barry, we're having a conversation.
motion. can be made.
So, yes. We do intend to have an informational meeting,
Yeah,
so,
but to the point we were talking about, if it comes to pass, that everything goes according to what we just discussed, then the conversation is, would you then be able to make the motion to the agreed upon version? Which is different than your resolution.
are you asking me to speak for everyone?
Yeah, it's,
No,
I'm offering
no,
it as a gesture.
no,
not
no,
as-
no.
I
Talk
would
about
probably
it.
say yes.
Yeah, just talk about it, no,
I
you,
would probably say yes.
you don't have to commit to anything,
I could even say it's collaborative.
right,
Sure.
Yeah, I just
That's
want
a
to,
great way to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
best way to do it,
Yeah.
best way to do it, yeah.
all right, all in favor?
Right.
So, we need a motion,
Yeah, so I make a motion to approve the right to farm select board version bylaw.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none,
Rob,
aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Dan is aye.
Thank you very much.
So Catherine, it definitely is collaborative, you know, and I mean, it's great that we've gotten to this point. It's obviously taken a lot to get here.
Yes.
And I haven't contributed at all, but it's, but it's good to see that.
You know, I've always thought of it as being collaborative, and I've always said that even when we have, not had a meeting of the minds, I think what we have ended up with is, a better bylaw. So, you know, we still dialogue about things that we don't agree on, but that's the beauty of everyone's perspective, is it keeps it from being in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
As long as we're all respectful
Year and a
of
half.
one another, which we have been.
I think Ross should write the version.
Ross,
Yeah.
Ross,
Yes,
will you do the rationale, please?
certainly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.
We have to vote on theirs.
What?
Technically, you don't have, I mean, you could,
We could vote.
you don't have to.
Let's hold on.
Why don't we wait until next week? Because-
Well, sometimes, I mean, a number of years ago, it was very common in FinCom booklets to say to be provided for a town.
Yes,
meeting.
right.
And either the board or the FinCom would vote
Right,
their
so we're gonna discuss
recommendation
all
on
of
that.
this later, right? I mean, we've wrapped up a long evening. Don't you have some other stuff to
Yes.
move on to?
We do.
So what I suggest is we cease conversations on this for now. Thank you.
Shush.
Hey, it's a joint committee meeting. I'm requesting that we move on.
You can
That's
make a
fine.
motion to adjourn.
I may
We
damn
have
well do
still,
it.
we have still.
Yeah. I know, so thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Barry,
Bye.
always a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, Angus, I like those types of ideas, but the best done.
No,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We didn't make. a
What?
motion.
we still have other articles, so.
Yes, I heard you say that. Dan was the one who wanted to hightail it, he's fed up. Okay, so
Just
what's next?
get you on.
Thank you.
So, I don't think you guys are weighing in on the animal bylaw, right?
No.
Okay.
No,
so-
but we have the telecom, right?
The telecom is the only other one. This is the contract, extension.
Yes.
Basically the,
Oh, and at the end, we have, your
the
request.
reserve fund
Yeah, right,
transfer
right,
request,
right.
right?
You got important stuff.
So yeah, we've signed a contract for 3 years for the new telecom, here in the town offices. The pricing they offered was for 5 years for the same price over 5 years, so. That we can't enter a contract for longer than 3 years without town meeting approval. So the request is for authorization to enter a contract for up to 5 years. Whether we would do that or not remains to be seen because the system is not yet up and running. So Rob had suggested to me some time ago, is this timely? I have mixed feelings. If this falls off the warrant, it really will not be a problem. We can bring it forward in the future. But it would be an enabling to allow us, if things all go well, we could lock in pricing for 5 years, which would be good. But whether it's something that's timely now, we could do it just as well in the fall or next spring. So if there's an interest to thin things out, I would have no heartburn if you want to just punt this one.
Would we still get the 5 year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, we have,
Tariffs, really, you know, who knows what's gonna happen, but I'm sure there are lots of things here that are not made in the United States. In terms of components.
well, this is really for the service plan.
Service.
Yeah.
So
this is
I
service.
I guess I was assuming service included replacing parts.
Hmm.
So
No,
I just,
they're not responsible for the
I
equipment.
ran into this once, we have to limit it to 3 years, but we could only get a 5 year, and we put in a right to cancel after 3 years. Does that solve your problem with town meeting? And you still get the 5 year pricing.
Well, we've signed a contract for 3 years. Cause we had to go forward with the
What's it
project.
cost a year?
Oh, gosh, that's where with Jack.
Probably $1,000 or $1 million.
it's not a million. I honestly don't remember. It's been a few months since we signed the contract. I really don't.
My thought is, we don't even have the system in place yet.
Yeah,
And you're sitting there endorsing it for an extra 2 years. We don't know how well it's gonna work to start with.
yeah.
So I don't know what the incremental changes for I'd pass on it right now if I was.
I'm fine with that. If, you know,
Is the fall timely enough?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
So we know that that offer will still stand in the fall.
I haven't asked them that.
Okay.
I mean, you could table it and I can have that conversation and then next Thursday you could either remove it from the warrant or if it looks like,
right,
you know, it could destabilize things in terms of, you know, tariffs or anything else.
I mean, I don't know, I just.
I don't know either. I don't know.
this
either.
is a service contract.
Yeah, it's a service contract.
Right, so, yeah, so it's
So
different.
They're charging the same price for a 3-year term or a 5-year term?
Yep, yeah, they offered an annual, a fixed price and
When did the contract start?
we signed it in I wanna say it was probably December, might have been December.
And they've been providing services since then?
No, we haven't started.
So the clock isn't even running right now.
Correct, correct. Yeah, the equipment's all here, all the hardware, the server, everything's in place.
I would
The phones
wait
are
till
being
the fall.
configured. Actually, the switchover date is like next week.
I would wait till, I'd wait till the fall.
Yeah.
Wow.
You wanna see if you actually.
Yeah,
want to
it is
very exciting.
I'm fine waiting.
Okay,
Good,
good.
thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
We'll just.
So do we have to vote to remove it?
Well, we don't know
Yeah, no harm.
if it's still,
Well, but it sounds like this seems like.
You don't even know you like the system. I'd wait until you see, I mean, I don't know how incremental the difference is, but it's not gonna be, for years 4 and 5, it's not gonna be $100,000 more.
No.
Besides, Jim, Angus can check out your point anyways, and, you know,
Look at it
if
fall.
Angus found out tomorrow that it's like the offer's off the table,
Yeah, they probably will.
yes, then you can come back next week.
For
I
years
wouldn't sweat it.
4 and 5.
So I just make a motion, we remove article number 49 from the warrant, which is the phone system contract extension.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Great. Yeah, I didn't get a chance for discussion. I
That's fine,
apologize.
that's fine.
What's your reason?
I just think it makes sense to go ahead with it at this point.
At what cost?
Okay. He doesn't have to be interrogated. He's not always a pain.
Okay, so I think the last one was, so this animal bylaw,
Which we already voted on, right?
you voted earlier tonight,
Yeah.
that's right, good, yeah. So I think that brings us to the reserve fund transfer, I believe.
Yes. So any questions on that needed?
Not a question, but a comment, I think.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact you went and got the quote on it. I think this is one of those cases, again, things are moving faster than we should have. And have the study done up front. Give me a much higher level of confidence, so yeah, very much in favor of going this way.
Yeah, and you can learn some very good things. Might have done us all a favor. Thank you.
All right.
We need to vote or the finger
No.
vote?
No, it's a big one. So the ball's in our court, and I think we may be down to 4 people attending, but, or maybe.
No, we still got over.
Yeah, well, okay, he might have left his iPhone, but anyways, do we have a motion?
So I make a motion to do a reserve fund transfer from the FinCom reserve fund of $7,500 for a study to assess the needs of the HVAC system in the Garden Library.
I second that.
So do we have any further discussion? So roll call.
Rob,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Wow.
and Jim,
Aye.
and Dan is aye.
That's unanimous. I think I have to sign something.
Yeah, I've got 4 copies right here for you.
Great, thank you.
So they are available next Wednesday, Angus.
Okay.
Come and do it, so
Does that end our participation?
it does. unless you'd like to.
She said with a grin on her face. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We get a roll call, Jim, okay?
Rob,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Jim.
Aye, because I'm hungry and I gotta go eat some sushi.
Yeah, thank you,
You know
Jim.
what? I never liked remote meetings until tonight.
Sushi for breakfast. I am so jealous of you, by the way. Japan, my God.
Whereabouts in Japan?
Right now, Tokyo, tomorrow, Kyoto.
Oh,
Oh,
my
my
favorite
God.
city in the world, Kyoto. Amazing.
That's it, as you say, great excuse, you're right.
That's Boston's sister city, you know.
I'll bring you guys some sushi back with me. We can have it at our next meeting.
Thank you, Joe.
Quite as fresh.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you very much.
Rob, I have 4 copies.
Yeah, all the time right now.
Great.
Guys, thank you very much for tonight. It was a pleasure. And
Oh, it was a good time.
I gotta, you know, it was a good time. And I gotta say, I think you guys have done a remarkable job this season. Not everything, but most everything. Thank you.
You look at me when you said that?
I'm not quite sure.
Oh, it was perfect, right? Thank you.
4 originals there.
Yeah.
There's a meeting next Thursday.
Motion? Yeah, there's a meeting next week.
We gotta wait for them to leave, don't we? Oh, make a motion to recess into executive session. How do we do it, Jim?
We gotta get it. What?
Yeah, pursuant to Mass General Law, chapter.
Actually, I read the chair is supposed to be that.
Okay, sweet.
Okay.
Okay, that's funny, we used to do it, used to be the chair couldn't do
I know.
it. Okay, well.
Isn't that true, Jim?
Change the mind.
I read that in the.
I mean, it's possible, the rules have changed.
Maybe for executive session, that makes sense.
No, that would make it because that's the one person who get it right.
Well, and there's certain of them that where the chair finds.
If the chair so declares, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, I need to recess to executive session.
Yes.
For MGL chapter 38, section.
Jim and
8,
Dan are totally
3,
different.
6.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
And I used to be that way. I used to be your way.
Oh,
Wild
Favor?
bird.
Christ, that never happened.
8.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm not listening to anything you say.
So no offense, as soon as you guys are done, we'll start.
Oh, animal bylaw, who's gonna write the rationale?
Wile E. Coyote.
No, that, we didn't
So-
vote on that. So
No,
I do that.
so
I
we
do-
can do that. We'll just say select board. Since you.
Well, we'll work that out.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Right.
Well, typically, we were leaving it open to
Yep.
the people
The
assembled,
sponsor,
but.
that makes sense,
Right.
yeah.
You still recording?
Okay.
Oh, you have to say you're not coming back into open
Yeah.
session.
All right, so for those who are via Zoom, the board has recessed to executive session. We'll resume open session for the sole purpose of adjournment. Thank you.